Hello and welcome to For Future Generations, episode 37. Am I getting that right? Is it 37 episodes already?
Yep.
My guy, wow. What a ride it's been. But episode 37, we are happy to have you. It is the 18th of October, folks, and we are happy, joyful to have you along for the ride. And I am Jeffrey, as always, joined by my wonderful friend Sean. Sean, how are you, man?
It's been a rough week, actually. Yeah, it has been a rough week. I know this is going to sound silly, but Ace Frehley, the guitarist for Kiss, died this week, and that's why I got my little candle in the wind going back here. It's funny. Like I was listening to the opening, which I don't think we had last time Ethan was here, and
nope.
Ace Frehley is. I mean, he's one of the main reasons I ever even picked up a guitar. I've been listening to Kiss like all last couple days. So, and me and everyone within 100 yards of my truck has been listening to Kiss. So that for me is kind of a thing. And I don't know, it just really, for some reason, it hit me really hard. And so yesterday I shaved my mustache. Like that's how hard it was. For whatever reason, I'm just like a clean shave sometimes just gets it out. So yeah, I've been kind of down this week, but I'm excited about this episode. So,
all right.
I know you wanted me to introduce the guy whose guy I am the top.
That's right.
I don't know how
top Ethan Holden fan, Sean.
Yeah. So Ethan and I have known each other. I think we figured it was since 2021.
Something like that,
I think it was like that. It was when the famous Cody Leibold being a loser incident. The famous one, not the less famous ones, but the famous one where he did that and we all got together. And that's been really cool. So Ethan, of course, is been on the show before, kind of self-employed. I imagine there's an LLC involved in what you do. Okay, yeah. So officially his own owner of his own company and all that. So he's a slumlord. He paints over outlets when he gets new tenants and all that good stuff. So Ethan, that's probably the worst introduction I could have given, but there he is.
Well, Ethan, I think we ran into each other online. That's where we first met, and it had to do with the whole Cody Leibold and new Christian intellectual stuff. That's where I first ran into Sean. It's Cody would probably pull his hair out to hear us say this, but we owe him a debt of gratitude. And there is still a Facebook group of I forget exactly what it's called, but it's something along the lines of list of people that Cody Leibold has slandered or that has Cody
I think it's
Leibold
blocked.
Yeah,
and I'm in that one.
Yeah, we're all there too. So, but before you give people a little introduction on yourself, I did want to say this is the second time that Ethan has been on our show, and the first time he was on was very early on. It was episode 9. And that is, to date, still our most viewed show was the one that we had you on. So we figured we just had to have you on again, man.
Well, hopefully we can break the record.
Yeah, but Ethan, how have you been, man?
Good. Busy as always. I've right now we're working on an addition for my brother Samuel. We've been busy with that today. We're blowing in insulation. He's back here right now laying flooring and. So just staying busy.
Yeah. Well, the work is never done. Never done. Yeah.
Especially for slumlords. So lots of outlets to paint.
Yeah. Well, a true slumlord wouldn't have insulation in the attic. So
That's true.
I mean, I have seen some of these renovations where they'll paint over dead cockroaches and just some of the work. And I mean, a little bit of a slumlord myself. My dad has some real estate, and we try and do good work that you could be proud of. As I'm sure you do too. I mean, the good Christian thing is to take care of your people. So all in jest. But the topic for tonight, church discipline and excommunication for right-wing young men. I mean, we talked about this last week, and our show was all about Daniel Keene and his excommunication, unofficial excommunication. The SBC and Southern Baptist churches don't seem to do much official excommunication anymore these days. It tends to be much more please don't come here anymore, please go somewhere else kind of a thing. But he was de facto excommunicated from his church for expressing an opinion about immigration.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there has been a spate of this kind of behavior in the church today. And yesterday, or last week, I should say, I leaned pretty heavy on several tweets that you were throwing out there about these situations because you had some really, really good, pertinent, and prescient things to say about it that I really appreciated. So when you made yourself available, I absolutely snapped you up as quick as I could because strike while the iron's hot. People have seen this. Everybody probably knows somebody who's been excommunicated from a church. I mean, we had Michael Hunter on early episode 15. He talked about his situation and the nonsense going on there. And we're glad to have you on to talk about kind of what is the playbook and what exactly is going on in the church right now.
Sure. Yeah, I put those tweets out, and when I said, we need to talk about this, somebody needs to compile these different stories and start finding the common playbook and the common thread that's running between all of these different stories across all of these different denominations, and surprisingly across several decades now, from what I found. Yeah. But my inbox just began to fill up. I mean, I've spent the entire last week just reading these stories, talking to people on the phone, listening to audio files of people who were wise enough to record their conversations with their elders. And so it's been a little bit of a depressing week going through all of that. And fortunately I did, after listening to, I probably had over 100 different audio files, stories, documents that were sent to me. And very quickly, there did emerge a very common playbook that's being used across the board. And to me, it seems like that is an important thing to expose these kinds of abuses in the church against our people. Yeah. And,
like you said, over the last several years or about a decade, really, I mean, I actually had some experience with this firsthand, and it actually turned out well. My elders are pretty reasonable people, but there's also a common thread of a lot of this is instigated by women.
Yes.
A woman speaks up and complains about the verbiage, the words. So I got called into the back office by my elders to sit down and have a chat because of some of the language that I was using on Facebook. And, it was upsetting. And, at first when it was brought to my attention, I kind of stood for what I had said. I didn't really recant anything. Maybe I could have taken a stronger stance than I did. I was younger then. And listening back to the recording, because I did record it, I don't feel like I did as good of a job as I could have. But ultimately, at the end of it, I discovered that the complaint was made by a young lady in the church who was friends with me on Facebook. And, the inciting and most offensive tweet was a scene from Cowboy Bebop where, which is an anime, I'll admit.
Okay.
I'm not an anime bro. I'm not a weeaboo. I've seen 2 animes all the way through, and Cowboy Bebop is one of them, and I really like it. But it's because it's about cowboys and bounty hunters and stuff like that. But this scene, these 2 guys are back to back, pistols blazing, world against us together. And just the caption was, me and my bro exiting Cracker Barrel after I called Ronald Reagan a pussy. The language of pussy was offensive. And,
sure.
Maybe that isn't the kind of language that I should have been blowing out there, into the ether full like that. But I stood my ground and I said, look, it is an offensive word, but not in the way that you think. It's a Latin word. And, anyhow, the upshot of it all was just the elders being like, okay, well, we know you have an online presence, and we don't want to interfere with that too much, but just kind of be careful about the words you use, be respectful and things like that. So for some people, these experiences don't come out all negative.
Sure.
But
sure.
Too many times it really does get thermonuclear right off the bat. As we saw last week when we were discussing Daniel Keene and his situation. I mean, they really just unloaded on this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, most of the situations that I read through this last week, it was just kind of that thermonuclear reaction. And to the point where it drove the elders in almost all of these situations into just abject sin. I mean, just horrible, obvious, blatant sin that they were willing to engage in order to prosecute or persecute these young men. And so, yeah, I think there were a few that worked out decently well. There's still some hard feelings, but it worked out. But a lot of the ones that I went through, and of course, when you put out those types of tweets, you probably are only going to get the ones that went nuclear. But yeah, that is the vast majority of what I got.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask a couple questions. You had mentioned recent tweets. Was it a specific set of tweets, or because I'm not on Twitter at the moment, so I'm not really following?
Yeah, you're saying the ones that prompted people to reach out?
Yeah. What was going on?
I did a series of tweets, I think maybe 2 or 3 that just basically talked about unjust church discipline. It's on the rise. This has to be brought to an end. These people need to be held accountable. And I can't remember what the very first one was that triggered all of that. But because it got such a huge response, I was like, okay, well, obviously this is a big problem. So I tweeted a couple more in that same vein. And sure enough, I mean, my inbox, my email, even today, I was getting text messages, Twitter, just blowing up with these stories. And, one of the things was right when this kicked off, the Daniel Keene thing happened, right when I started to post about this. It was like a day or two later, this thing happened to Daniel. And so everything kind of just lined up to be able to say, okay, it's time to have a public conversation about these things.
Yeah.
What were some common themes that you saw in people's stories?
Yeah. So I would say there was a couple of different routes that these cases took. And some of them Jeff has already kind of alluded to, which is the unofficial, hey, please just don't come back anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I was tracking the different denominations that were doing this. And the only 2 denominations that were really willing to go all the way and do it officially were the RPCNA and the ARP, as well within the Reformed circles, and then the LCMS in the Lutheran circles. They were the only ones I saw who were really most of the time what I heard from somebody from those denominations, they were excommunicated or disciplined in an actual orderly. And when I say orderly, I don't mean right. I just mean they actually went about it in an official way.
It was formal.
It was formal. Yeah. Where the rest of these denominations, the URCNA, the CREC, the PCA, OPC, it was much more informal. It was just these meetings where, it's been made very clear that you are not welcome at this church anymore.
With the CREC, I imagine you heard a number of ones from the CREC.
I did, yeah.
They've made a name for themselves as being the denomination that does not stand for young right-wing men. The reason I say it that way is that the pastors in the CREC are habitually online.
Yeah, sure.
That is their ministry, is having a Twitter account and just looking for dirt and just it's insane. Like my pastor does not have social media, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because he's not just like trying to get into everyone's little business and be a busybody. But yeah, the CREC has a lot of pastors that are like, I'm going to make a name for myself. This guy, this guy is going to be my Goliath, and I'm going to, everyone will hear the deeds that I've done when I get this guy kicked out of the church. So like, how has that been going? Because you were saying it was like informal, but
yeah. I mean, and I'll say this too, like a lot of CREC pastors actually reached out and were saying like, like Ted Sutton, who's out of Montana, he's a CREC pastor. And he was completely on our side of this thing. He's like, these are not disciplinable things. He was very reasonable. But several people that I spoke with were saying like the CREC is very divided on this issue. And some of it is kind of your proximity to Wilson. He's the one writing these memorials. He's the one putting pressure. I think last time I was on here, we talked about how he tried to put pressure down here in the Valley on me. And I'm not even part of the CREC. But he he's out for blood at the moment. And but there's a lot of other pastors who they're absolutely not going along with it. In fact, there's an entire presbytery. I want to say it's out in Kentucky. It's out there. So the Vanguard Presbytery, who is really all of the pastors have kind of stood against this purge of the right-wing young men. They don't see having different views on World War II or whatever as a sin or something that needs to be disciplined or even talked about in an official church capacity. And so there's a lot of great guys, great pastors in the CREC, but you have a lot of these guys who it seems like they're much more keen on serving Doug Wilson than they are on serving Christ. And so they are going to make a name for themselves out of hunting people down. I might have talked about this last time I was on the show. I don't remember, but there was some folks from Moscow, not in an official capacity, but Greyfriars Hall people who were actually calling my church, trying to cause trouble down here, not even in their denomination, just meddling and trying to stir up strife. So I think those people who kind of identify with Wilson very heavily, they are much more prone. They're kind of the little planets that got caught in the orbit of the big guy. So they just like almost, to me, it just seems very much like they're just constantly trying to please him. And so they're going to make this their mission.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to me, you're talking about the CREC and how a lot of the pastors from this denomination want to have a big online presence. And I'm not going to criticize them for that per se. I have an online presence and I'm trying to get people to subscribe to my show and follow me on Twitter and on Facebook and things along those lines. And I do see it as a part of my ministry because the more people that see what I say, I can propagate, my ideas that way. So there is a legitimate use for this.
Yeah.
But it is wild to see how bizarre it can become when you have this seeker sensitivity where we're going to orchestrate our entire church service to try to reach young people. We're going to put guitars on stage and all this, and then the reaction against that then turns into a different kind of seeker sensitivity where it's like, okay, we're going to do all of those things, but with a different motive and a different focus. We're going to have this huge online presence. We're going to be politically active. And it's a church growth model. If people see me online, they'll look up my church, they'll move here, they'll live here, they'll get jobs here. And there can be a legitimate use to that. I'm not going to knock it per se, but certainly it can be overemphasized to the detriment of the church at home. Yeah. If you are so worried about what people online are going to think and say about your church, you're going to behave differently in the pulpit You're going to behave differently in the daily lives of the laity, and you're going to treat your parishioners differently because of the way that the world sees you, if that's the thing you're focusing on. And I'm afraid that is what we're seeing here with all of this discipline. Is a lot of this discipline is people didn't like what you said, or people didn't like the way you said it. There's not really anything in Matthew about what you did that is grounds for church discipline. We're not going to follow the process laid out by Jesus Christ, God himself. We're not going to follow that process because we're a little more worried about what men think than what God thinks. And that is a common thing, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is, you guys have already hit on two of the major things that I've kind of seen in this. And I'll, kind of a full disclosure. So one of the things that kind of kicked this into high gear for me was that I had a pressure campaign kind of marshaled against my church. I was a member of this church for over a decade. There was a strategize, like openly, these guys were openly talking about, we're going to put a pressure campaign against this church. And they began to, honestly, so what they did was, to find out where I went to church, I kind of tried to hide it somewhat just to protect my church, because obviously not everybody in the church agrees with me. In fact, besides my brother, I don't know that anybody in the church agrees with me. But what they did was they began to search the documents on the Secretary of State website to find any document that might have my name on it. And they got down to my church. They found my name because I was the treasurer. And so then they started this pressure campaign against my church. And so, that's kind of what kicked this into high gear of me talking about these things. Was I began to see in my own church the same playbook kind of unfolding. And one of the big things that was like kind of I guess it was the big thing that kicked it off and really got it in high gear. Things were already kind of moving, but the thing that really lit the fire was a woman got upset. Somebody went on some liberal reformed Reddit page and wrote this whole thing about me, disclosed where I go to church, what my denomination is, what town it's in, my name. Instead of using my Twitter handle, they used my name and said, hey, this guy's a Nazi. This church is a Nazi church. If they allow a Nazi to be in their church, they are a Nazi church. There's a liberal, older divorcee in my church who saw that and got all offended, looked at my Twitter, got upset, and began to write the elders. That kind of kicked things into high gear. So fairly short after that, I got called in to talk with the elders. And that is where I'd say a lot of that playbook that I'd already been fairly familiar with was kind of thrown in, as tried to use against me. And I that was the point where I realized when I walked away that night that I'm in a good position, because it's like I've got a great family, I've got very close godly friends, I've got companies and lovely, I'm set up. So if I lose my church, it's not as big of a deal to me as it would be to say a 20-year-old kid who is single and away from his parents. And I began to think about that and thought, man, this really has to be dealt with. But the two things that you guys kind of have hit on is, one, the amount of times that this is caused by a woman in the church. And many times it's an elder's wife or the pastor's wife. But sometimes it's just a woman in the church who got offended. And secondly, the other big piece of this that maybe we can address these things later, but is the just complete disregard of Matthew 18 or any rules about how to handle these types of situations. That automatically goes out the window for right-wing things. Over and over and over again, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's hard to find a decent list of what things are we allowed to disagree, like what how do I want to say this? I don't want to say like gospel related. I feel like that gets overused. But like what non-articles of the faith things are we allowed to disagree about? Obviously Hitler is on that short list in 2025. Immigration, yeah. The existence of race, let's go there. That's obviously you can't believe in the existence of race and still go to church with spinsters.
Black crime stats.
Well, that just
foreign
goes
missions.
But even that, like it a lot of those things goes down to the existence of race. Because if you say that race exists, then you have to deal with the disparities.
The ramifications of it.
Because if the disparities don't really exist as much with like income levels or whatever. But as soon as you say, hey, that guy kind of looks like that guy, let's put them in this category. Whoa, the numbers are so different. Crazy. Where did that come from? So what else would be on that list? I mean, it's such a bizarre adoption. Some aspects of adoption people really don't like.
Clothes. That was one thing that got brought up in my meeting was I criticized Paul David Tripp for the way that he dressed in a meeting where I just said basically he's dressed up like a doll, like a man who had never worked a day in his life. It had his cuffs rolled up. Just as a funny side note on that, I kind of went ham on him and that got brought up in the meeting. But one of my friends at the church who disagreed with me, and he's in leadership, he was going to kind of play a joke on me and buy the same outfit that Paul David Tripp had, and he was going to wear it to church. So he ordered it, and I think it even came in, and he realized that like one or two of the articles really were women's clothing. And so he's like, okay, maybe Ethan's right on this thing. So
vindicated.
Paul David Tripp has worn some crazy stuff in the past, so I can only imagine what outfit this is.
Well, I don't know who that is, but I can certainly believe it. I've seen lots of pastors in bedazzled skinny jeans. And
that's the thing. It's like the backwards thinking in all of this. It's like they were upset with me for mentioning something like that. And I'm like, why are you not upset with like a 70-year-old Presbyterian minister for dressing like a lady? Like you're more upset with me for pointing it out than you are with this guy who's behaving so unbecoming of a man and a man of that age and a man in that position. But it's like, that's the kind of backwards. It's the pearl clutching that happens in all of these meetings. I mean, they just kind of reach for anything they can grab a hold of that somebody might not like. So,
another aspect of, clothing, although it's actually a deeper subject. So full disclosure, I am a very conservative individual. I grew up IFB, and I still hold to those principles that I was raised with a few exceptions. I mean, I'm a nicotine and alcohol enjoyer, but I still believe in modest apparel and head coverings. And head coverings is an issue over which people have been excommunicated. Yuri Brito, the leader of the CREC denomination, has publicly excommunicated people because they had their wives wearing head coverings in his church. I was talking to one of his followers or supporters. I happened to run into a guy and we were talking about that. And he was trying to explain to me, you've got to understand, Ethan, you're the head of your wife until you enter the church building, and then your pastor is the head of your wife. Wow.
And I was like, where'd you learn that from? And he claims he learned it from James Jordan. I haven't read Jordan, so I don't know. But
exactly how far are you willing to take that? If
I asked, will you pay for her mortgage
with your wife?
Yeah, right.
Is it like, well, I mean, while I'm at church, at my house, I'm her only man, but at church,
Eskimo
it's wild.
Eskimo rules at church. That's what it is.
Straight, prima nocta. I'm like, what is this? This is
but
this isn't Christianity.
But that is the logical conclusion. As silly as that reductio ad absurdum is, that is the actual logical conclusion of this line of argumentation.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, it just goes to show just this like ever expanding power grab that's going on in many of these churches amongst elders and pastors. I'm not here to bash my former elders and pastors. I did leave that church after being in there for a decade. But even that night, you know, that's one of the things I talked about is like, you guys do not have authority over these things. And, you know, this was something that we kind of ran into back in 2020 during the mask stuff. You know, this church, they, you know, the elders did not want us to have to wear masks, to their credit. They did not want that. But they were renting a church from like a liberal female Mennonite pastrix who did want us to wear masks. And so I said, well, I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, you have to wear a mask to enter the building. Otherwise, we're going to lose the building. So I said, okay, I'll go to another church until you guys step up and stop passing this burden down to the people, and you take the burden and go fight with that woman. And so I went to another church for like 3 weeks. And when we finally got together to hash this thing out, this was my point back then. You do not have the authority to tell me that I have to force a mask on my wife or my child or myself and come to your church. You don't have that authority. And they were convinced that they do have that authority. So we found a way to kind of bypass it, sweep it under the rug, and move on peaceably. But I did say in my last email to my pastor about that situation, like, hey, this is going to come up again because there's an authority issue in this church. You're convinced that I have an authority issue, and I'm convinced that you have an authority issue. We could get past this issue temporarily, but this is going to come up again, and it will be the end of our relationship. And that's exactly how that played out. You know, it took another 5 years, but then there was another big power grab. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not submitting to this. And, you know, in my case, I wasn't put on church discipline. There was no threats of excommunication. My guess is if we would have continued, then church discipline probably would have been enacted. I don't know any way around that. But it was like more of a discussion, I guess. And so they called me in, accused me of some pretty heinous sins that were completely untrue. Laughed at the idea that they were going to have to provide proof for those sins that they were accusing me of, and laughed at the idea that I would have the chance to defend myself against their accusations. And the accusation was murder. And that's what made it stick out so much to me, was that they accused me of murder. Now, again, I agree with their understanding of murder, that it's not just a physical murder, that the Sixth Commandment, you can't murder people's reputations, you can't attack unjustly, you can't hate people. I think it goes beyond just cold-blooded murder. And so when they actually, you know, leveled that accusation against me, I was kind of excited because I said, okay, we have a platform on which we both agree. We could both work from this definition and come to a conclusion here. So repeatedly, I asked them, just put your finger in the text. Go back and look at what you just read out of the Westminster or the Three Forms of Unity or whatever, and we'll work from there. I said, you know, show me which of my tweets was murder and hateful or whatever you want to say. And they refused to provide the tweets. They just said, you know, like, what do you want us to do? Go through your Twitter feed and find what tweets qualify for this? And I'm like, well, I'm called in here to stand before you for that reason. So yes, I expect you've had 3 weeks or whatever to prepare for this meeting. I would expect that you have that. No, we didn't bring any of that. I said,
so you want evidence for us to put you on trial? What are you
for murder?
Yeah.
You know, it's like I was treated like I was basically supposed to just assume the guilt of murder with no evidence. And so, they kind of like laughed at the idea. But one elder in particular kind of laughed at the idea that he would have to provide evidence for this accusation, and that I would get a chance to defend myself, against that accusation. And so, you know, he, you know, after 50 minutes to an hour of reading the Bible, reading the creeds and confessions, making me reaffirm my vows to the church, then they leveled the accusation at me. And he said, Ethan, what this comes down to is this. We believe that there are people on earth who Christ would give a cup of water to, who you would not. And I was like, oh, okay. Who would I not give a cup of water to? And basically it came down to blacks and Jews. And I was like, okay. And this is the funny thing. So going back to kind of the playbook, So these guys know me. They've known me since I was a kid, since I was in my 20s. I joined this church coming off of the mission field from all black tribes. These guys know that one of the last things that I did before leaving the tribes was install a well so that the entire black tribe could have water. And I'm sitting here before men who probably have never given a glass of water to a black person, being accused of hating these people, and I wouldn't do these things for them, which was wild and extremely offensive. And even that night, it kind of kicked off the fireworks. But the more I sat with that over the next week, I just thought, man, this is egregious. Like, this is really a wicked accusation to bring against me, especially going back to the playbook of just dismissing all the facts that they know about these people. These guys know a lot about me. They know what I'm involved in. They know what I've done with my life and what I've done in my home, what I do with my money. They know these things. But all of that kind of gets dissolved because you quoted black crime statistics or said, hey, segregation is not a moral evil or whatever. All that goes out the window. The facts don't matter. It's somebody could interpret this as being hateful.
Yeah, I would give water to a Jew, but I would charge him for it. That would be my stipulation.
Well,
get some of that interest back.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's a very bizarre, specific thing to say, because there is a passage in Scripture that says quite blatantly not to give food or nourishment to a specific class of people.
Yeah.
And those people are specifically the ones who deny the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Sure.
And who does that other than Jews, or who does that more than Jews? And their accusation is, well, Jesus Christ would give a glass of water to these people and you wouldn't. Jesus Christ is the one who commanded us not to break bread with the people who are partakers in these particular heresies.
Sure. Who claim to be your brother,
who claim to be an older brother in the faith and things along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't want these tweets to come off like I was, waging some sort of war against my former church or anything like that. I have no bitterness towards those guys. I did call them to repent. I did say, hey, do not even contact me until you repent of these slanderous accusations against me. And I got a text message from one of the guys in the church just like lambasting me about, you're hateful and racist. And again, I always hate pulling this card, but it is a little bit ironic. It's like, I'm married to a Pacific Islander. My brother's married to a Pacific Islander. We bring literally 100% of the racial diversity to that church, and we're the ones accused of being a racist. It's just so now that we've left, it's literally an all white church, and just a wild situation. But I began to see. So this playbook that I was already fairly familiar with just from listening to some of my friends' recordings before all of this, I got to see it kind of up close and personal. So my situation kind of acted like a microcosm for all of this. I saw the playbook, which was like, hey, people in the church have come to us complaining about your tweets. I said, okay, cool. Who? We don't have to tell you that. I'm like, oh, you actually do. I don't know if you ever read Matthew 18, but it's very clear about this. They are instructed to come to me and talk to me, and I'll happily talk with them. And they just said flat out, they are not going to enforce Matthew 18. And so I said, why is that? Is it a theological difference? Do you think I'm reading that incorrectly? And the elder got kind of weepy and was like, no, Ethan, it's because people are broken and people are hurting, and we can't expect them to follow Matthew 18 when they're broken and hurting. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that there was a clause in there that if somebody was broken, they didn't have to follow the Bible. These guys are brave enough to reach out to the elders, but they're not brave enough to come and talk to me.
How would that hold up in a court of law?
Yeah, right.
Like, okay, that man, sexually assaulted me. No, I'm not going to show up in court because, that would be traumatic.
Yeah. And to add to that, we don't have to provide any proof. We're just going to throw out the accusation. We don't have to provide proof, and you don't get a chance to rebut. Yeah. You're just guilty.
Yeah, you've got to be able to face your accuser.
Yeah,
that's the big thing. It's more like this guy stole from me, or somebody saying, hey, we got word that you stole from somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I'm going to go to trial, right? No, because you broke that person and they're hurting, and now they're broke for real because you stole their money. Like, oh, well, what do I do with that? What is that?
And that's kind of and that's one of the common things I saw in all of these situations. You know, it's a weird circumstance when the person who is accused of something is like, hey, let's look at the Bible, let's look at the facts, let's pull up my Twitter account, let's go through these things. And the people doing the accusing, the pastors and elders, are saying, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to the Westminster. We're not going to the Bible. We're not going to the three forms of unity. We're not doing any of that. And you know, there was 4 times in that meeting that I asked them to go back to Matthew 18, to go back to the documents that they spent almost an hour reading to me before accusing me of this thing. And they absolutely refused at every single point to go back and actually look at the facts and look at the scriptures. I try to enforce the scriptures, say, hey, you know, this is not how this is supposed to be done. And flat out, it was just rejected. It was not like they didn't come in and say, no, we actually don't think that applies. They did try like a little Jewish trick of, hey, those guys brought the complaints to us, so now we're the ones lodging the complaints against you. So you are facing your accusers by facing us. I'm like, yeah, don't try that nonsense with me. That's just Phariseeism. You got your little workaround where you tricked God and got around his word. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But this has been a common thread through all of these things, the complete disregard of Matthew 18, the inability for people to be able to answer for themselves, the feeling like they don't need to provide proof for an accusation. We all just know this to be true. This is something that's being run on our guys over and over and over again.
It sounds like you're getting into the playbook thing. Did you want to go over?
Yeah.
Like just kind of like, what is this theme that you see throughout? Because you've obviously collected like a ton of stories. We can't just put all those stories out there because they were told in confidence, and I'm sure those people don't want. Like if they wanted you and everyone else to know it, they would have just posted it and tagged it or something like that. So like. I'm not saying do that, but like, what are the common threads? Because you had mentioned before the show, like there is a playbook. They all do it.
Yes.
Before we get into the playbook, maybe this is a good moment to take a break and read some of the comments from people who have dropped in. And I'm sure people will have some commentary that we can riff on a little bit. And then when we get through with comments, we'll get into the playbook, the common threads that we've noticed. But first off, we've got Dickie S says first. Yes, indeed, you are first. And somebody else, Eric Skeen, says second. Yes, you are. Or maybe he's seconding the first. I don't know. But here's Seth Goodale says, let's go, baby. Seth, good to see you, man.
I'm going, baby. Don't worry.
Yeah, we are. Here we go. Here we are. John Carter can finally listen live again. Good to have you, man. Good to have you. And then here's Jonathan Davis. Jonathan Davis says, good evening, fellas. Good evening, sir. Hope you're doing well. And Dickie S says, hey, John.
Talking to each other. Sidebar.
I guess he and Jonathan Davis know each other. But here's
I can't riff on these things.
Back in my day, sticks and stones, etc., the feminization of the church has gotten out of hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being raised by especially my grandmother. Very much, Southern Baptist old lady from the South. And she very much hammered the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Evidently, there's like 4 lines to that poem or a saying or something. She used to recite them all off at us anytime we were crying because somebody said something. So, the thick skin is completely gone. And that was from a church lady, mind you. So, they're not sending their best. The church ladies, they have degraded a bit over the years for sure.
I would say, I would add to that, the feminization of the comment was the feminization of the church has gotten out of hand. I think specifically it's the feminization of the pastorate that has gotten out of hand. Because if that never happened, then everything under that umbrella would have just been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like the divine service itself wouldn't have gotten feminine because the pastor wouldn't allow it. We were talking before the show how my pastor was like, guys, you have always done worship this way. I have always done worship this way. This is what we're doing. We have our book. We're using our book. Don't try to play games with it. Like when you have that kind of masculine, like this is the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not here to play games with you. This is not a democracy. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like this.
Yeah.
So, but once it got into, well, but if we made it more like a concert, the people across the street might show up, and that's when it went downhill. So I guess that would be my more getting to the source of the problem. That it's not like the people in the pews were the ones who just got really gay. Like that gayness came from somewhere.
Yeah, we always call it the feminine gaze, GAZE. The pastors live under the feminine gaze, and that's what goes on. These guys feel such a burden to please these women, and and that was another one of those tweets that was in that mix was along the lines of church. The church ladies have caused way more damage to the church than right-wing men, and again, it's these pastors feel a need to kind of tuck it in order to please these women. And whether it be an elder's wife or a liberal divorcee or whoever in the church, women over and over and over again in these stories play a key part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and bowing to the feminine gaze, even the feminine homosexuals in some cases. I mean, when I was 17, we were unofficially excommunicated. We were asked to leave our church because there was a homosexual, a sodomite, an open sodomite in the church. And not only was our church not addressing the issue and having him removed, but they were grooming him for leadership, grooming him perhaps in more ways than one. But, our church has been captured by this homosexual idea.
Yeah.
That, we need to just be ooshy squooshy and super get along. And, how does this affect you personally? But then as soon as, we stand up against it, well, that did affect me personally.
Yeah.
So, a sodomite's presence in the Sunday school and in the church service, leading music or whatnot. I mean, how does this affect you personally? But your tweets, man, those affected on such a personal level that, they weren't even able to make an appearance to levy this accusation against you. How far have we fallen?
Yeah. It's just completely unjust.
Speaking of gay boys.
Well, here's John Carter talking about the growing list of people blocked by Cody Libel. Yeah,
that is the
John.
Group, yeah.
He is also in that group, so he would know. Yeah, that is the correct name. Dickie S says, "How do I get on that list?" And
just don't be gay. He will put you on the list.
Yeah.
He says, "Check. You might already be blocked."
Yeah.
And he just says, "I might need to have a Facebook or Twitter to be blocked." There's a good point here, which is if you're not online, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it is, the online sphere is the current public square.
Yeah.
It's also true that if you don't vote and you just never leave your house, a lot of politics doesn't affect you either. But
right.
You're just surrendering at that point.
Yeah.
And
that's how we got in this mess to begin with. It was a generation that kept their head down and worked in the factory and didn't care about anything outside of their home and their neighborhood. That's how we got in this mess.
Yeah. And how's that turning out for you?
Yeah. Well, now we have to fight like hell. So that's how it turned out.
Yeah. Here's Dickie again. He says, the AARP, is that a denomination now? I thought it was just a bunch of old people. Well, the Same. ARP, the ARP, and I'll probably get this wrong, but it's the American Reformed what does ARP stand for again?
I don't know. I've only started running those jokers.
I thought it was like Association of Reformed Presbyteries or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
That sounds right.
It's an association of several micro denominations who came together. But yeah, Presbyterians, they will invent a new denomination every other Sunday. So many such cases.
When they don't like the Presbytery over them, they just split off and make their own, which is not really Presbyterianism.
So,
So.
Right. And here's Seth Goodale has an observation here. CREC stands for can really excommunicate Chads, or maybe that's can readily excommunicate Chads. Yeah, definitely. Jonathan Davis, AARP will cancel your blood pressure meds.
They make me need blood pressure meds.
That's their form of church discipline. And then Jonathan Davis again, there's a war on testosterone. Yeah. Estrogen will put butts in seats, but in a generation, it'll be a mosque. Yeah, that's what we're seeing in the Northeast. Muslims are purchasing old church buildings, turning them into mosques. Europe is littered with beautiful ancient churches and cathedrals that are turned into libraries and mosques and Buddhist shrines because the Christians aren't there anymore. They've voted with their feet and they went elsewhere. And I'd love to see those things taken back. The other Paul, good to see you, man. He says, hello, lads. Yeah.
Jump on the Bobby.
Boston's
our Australian favorite.
Our favorite our favorite down under man. And Seth just says, what up? Dickie S. Hello, Paul. Yeah. We are the diversity. We've got people all over the world from every different ethnicity, and we all agree on a lot of things. Here's Adam White. I've thought about this a lot. Something I was going to post on Facebook, but I'll drop it here. Not exactly due to right-wing beliefs, but this happened to me. And I'm sure he'll go into that more later. But a lot of many such cases. A lot of guys run out of their churches explicitly because of right-wing beliefs. Dickie, being excommunicated because you're ugly doesn't count. Again, the pastor does not have authority over these matters. Seth Goodale, I'm surprised you haven't been excommunicated yet. Yeah. But anyway, we'll pass through some of these. Tripp and his gospel glasses. Does he wear glasses? Particularly,
he does. Yeah.
Glasses? Does he wear those pink rimmed glasses?
He's got the clear rimmed ones. Yeah. Just like
grandma glasses.
Yeah, like the other girly man that wears those. You know who I'm talking
Rachel
about.
Maddow.
Yeah. I don't Rachel Maddow impersonator.
Seth Goodell says, anyone remember those parody videos? You'll have to give a little more context than that. There are a lot of parody videos online, and I have seen a lot of them. I'm very conservative. This from Dickie S. No, really, I would never have guessed from this podcast. Yes. News flash, folks. I am extremely conservative. Yeah, I am trying to conserve many of the good old things.
Hey, there you go.
Seth Goodell, anything Wild said can be traced back to James Jordan.
Why not?
Maybe so.
Works for me.
Pastrix is a fake word.
Correct.
It's a real word, but it's a fake thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not.
Well, but that is why. I mean, it basically saying pastrix is like saying female pastor or Pastor Jan or something like that. Like it's not. Ethan is not for the female pastor.
No.
Yeah. Even Luther had a chance to defend himself. Yeah. Right. Even the Catholics at their wildest, most persecuting height during the Spanish Inquisition, there were many people who requested specifically to be tried in a Spanish Inquisition court because they knew that they would get justice there, that the courts were more fair and more lenient. So even the horror stories you hear about men of the past are often, I mean, these people pale in comparison to what's going on today.
Well, I've made that point since the night that I went in and met with my elders, and also just listening through these different audios is I mean, we're the Christian brothers within a church who've been faithful to the church for a decade are treated worse than Luther was treated by the Catholics. I mean, the Catholics famously laid out Luther's works on the table.
Yep.
You know, showed him where they differed with him and asked him to explain or recant or whatever. And you know, it's like minute
specific
that option. Yeah,
And then they gave him a break to go hang out in the library for a bit, and then come back, and like they had a crowd. Like it was the whole thing, man.
Yeah, we don't even get the same. We don't get the same benefit that literally the Catholics who saw Luther as a heretic gave him. You know, now granted, the Catholics also tried to kill him, all that, but in the court,
after
Luther was treated as a Christian. The Catholics behaved as a Christian in that court, looking at evidence, giving a chance to refute the evidence, having a debate. That's not happening in these Reformed churches.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes from Luther's life, where he gets accused of being a Hussite, and he's like very staunchly defending himself. No, I'm not. I'm not a Hussite. Goes into the library, pulls out a bunch of works by John Huss, looks through them, and he comes back out. He's like,
all right, I'm a Hussite.
You got me.
Let's see. Chris Hook, in some places the devil is obvious. In our place and time, he comes to you with a smile and a handshake.
Yeah.
Many such cases. Dickie says the Bible only applies to saints, not to broken people. I'm not sure about the line of argumentation. I'm not sure how they make this work, but you know, rules for thee, but not for me.
Yeah.
Most SA cases are actually just that, though. Accusers often don't show up, and evidence is often she said so.
Yeah. I
don't know about them not showing up. I've never heard a case where they didn't show up, but the evidence of she said so it must be true. While in court that doesn't hold up, the court of public opinion does seem to hold very strongly.
If the accuser doesn't show up, then
the case gets thrown out.
Then she is not saying so. Like that's so I'm not really sure. I mean, I get what you're saying, that it's a lot of, no, I swear the crime happened. Okay, we'll put him away forever. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ben Mordecai, good to see you.
Hey,
one of my heroes, man. One of my heroes.
Yeah.
Here's Ben. He says, "Hi, chat. Hello. Good to see you, man."
I love Ben.
Good dude. B-Tex, just leading your family in a traditional fashion causes turmoil. Even without having spoken your mind or a presence on social media, the females of both sexes will sow discord. Yeah. I mean, running and hiding has its limits. All you're doing is postponing the problem and often snowballing the ramifications. You've got to fight the fight where you find it.
You know, I ran into that a little bit. Well, even at this church, and it wasn't from the elders; it was from just friends in the church. Not, you know, the fact that my wife doesn't work. That was a huge point of contention for a lot of people with me.
Oh, they hate that.
They hate it. They hate it. And you know, I led my family in a traditional way, and I did get a lot of pushback about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he says, it does happen. They actively oppose a traditional household. Yeah. I mean, these guys who are getting excommunicated for their wives wearing head coverings, they weren't necessarily on social media. They were just trying to show up in their local body, following the scriptures according to what Paul literally commanded them to do. And getting excommunicated for it. Chapter and verse right here. Paul says, do it. But pastor says, don't. So therefore, out the door you go. Ben Mordecai coming in clutch. He says it's the Associate Reformed Presbyterian Church. There you go. Thank you, Ben. Modern Patriarch says, great episode so far, guys. Yeah, thank you. Female pastors is an oxymoron. Yes, it is. Matthew Fletcher says, what up, boys? What up, Matthew? Good to see you.
Another one. He's one of the good ones.
And we'll pause. We'll put a break in it right here. But Dickie asks, on the subject of SA, even though you don't believe it, accusers aren't usually present in the courtroom, although it would rightly be required. Feel free to look it up. Well, I will look it up, but the things I've heard of is them coming in remotely. They're still present, if not physically present. And that is, I mean, you can do something like that. You're still present, even if you're not physically present.
Well, because your lawyer is going to be able to cross-examine. Like that is the purpose of the trial. So you can't put forward evidence that cannot, or testimony that can't be cross-examined like that.
Sure,
that doesn't exist. So I mean, if it
unless
does,
it's in a church court.
Well, there you go.
Well, and I've made that point a few times. It's like you don't see this level of corruption or incompetence except in the church. The church is the only place that this level of complete incompetence is acceptable.
Yeah.
You would never see this in a company. I mean, you might have an off chance, but largely you don't see it in companies. You don't see it in the court system. Evidence, there's evidence presented. People can give an answer. There's cross-examination. Only in the church is it acceptable to behave worse than the pagans.
Mm-hmm. Very, very bizarre, and a bad indictment of the
it is
for sure.
It is.
All righty. Well, let's see. We left off talking about the playbook. What is the playbook? Yeah. And there are these common threads, common themes that are noticeable, that have been observed, things that are not unusual, unfortunately. So, Ethan, what are some of those commonalities that you've noted?
Yeah, so I'll say, a little bit of what we've talked about with just completely getting rid of Matthew 18 in this particular circumstance. It will not apply. Now, and in a lot of these churches, they would enforce Matthew 18 if the sin was a left-leaning sin. If it was something like somebody believed in gentle parenting, somebody, there was gossip going on, something like that. Something that our people would never bite off on. Those sins are handled through Matthew 18. There's proper decorum. There's church courts, and they're stringent about it. They'll make you go through the process when it comes to stuff like that. In fact, I was actually part of a church that if I came to Sean and Sean was the pastor, and I said, "Hey, did you see what Jeffrey did?" There's, The pastor would stop and say, "Hey, I don't need to know about this. You have a problem with Jeffrey. You need to go. I am going to call Jeffrey and tell him that you're coming to meet with him, and you need to go and do that." And he would shut it down right there. And that was good, godly behavior. So going from that to, Matthew 18 being completely disregarded for any right-wing, and I say sin with quotes because it's not sin, but right-wing behavior is a complete flip. It's a betrayal. You don't really believe Matthew 18. You're trying to circumvent it. So that's a very, very common one. The second one is to use kind of hypotheticals. I spent a great deal of my struggle session having to answer for hypotheticals. It's like, what if a black person with a missing leg came to your service and they were going to, but then they saw your tweet about black people and they said, so you're constantly kind of stuck answering these hypotheticals instead of dealing with anything that's actually happened. And they, of course, they're going to make the situation as sad as humanly possible. This black guy, his wife was eaten by a dog, and it's like, you're sitting here, your head's spinning, trying to answer, what is this? What is this? Either you have a real complaint or you don't.
Yeah, and he got hit with a fire hose, and now you're refusing to give him a glass of water. What's up with that?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's wild behavior. So I would say, it's like when this started going on in my struggle session, I just said, "Hey, I'm not interested in answering hypothetical questions like this. Give me the real things that people are offended about, and I'll happily answer for that. But I'm not going to go into this thing like, what if they were abused when they were a child? I'm not interested in it. And that would be my advice to other young men who go into these situations is reject that. Don't go down that path. There are helpful hypothetical questions. There are helpful reductio ad absurdums. But the ones that they tend to bring are not that. It's something meant to just completely trap you. If an Auschwitz survivor came in and that, not interested, So I would say Matthew 18 being disregarded, the hypotheticals being a big problem. Another one that's very hard to pin down, and it's extremely common. It happened in mine. It happened in most of these that I listened to. Is the kind of what's a good word for this? Like it's kind of a they accuse you of a sin that you can't really pin down. You can't really define what it is. It's like, we're accusing you of not walking in step with the Holy Spirit and keeping peaceable things upon your tongue. It's like, what? Yeah. I don't even know what you're saying,
Yeah.
That is a very common, because they know they can't go, you violated the third commandment or you violated the ninth commandment. They know they can't do that. And so they have to kind of construct this really emotional, undefinable sin and kind of lay that on you to battle with that.
Yeah.
And I would say when you enter into that, if they start to do that to you, and usually they will have a verse, like, not keeping in step with the Holy Spirit is a verse. Mm-hmm. I think one of the best things that you can do is, this is what I did in mine. They kind of accused me of something like that. And I went, oh, who wrote that? That was Paul, right? Paul's the same guy who said this thing over here about the Cretans. And if I said this thing about the Cretans, you would say I'm not walking in step with the Holy Spirit and keeping peaceable things on my tongue. It's like, tie it back to show there is no contradiction between when Paul says to keep peace or when Paul says that we need to be kind to one another, and also saying that the Cretans are liars and beasts and lazy gluttons and all of those things. Those are not in conflict with each other. They work together hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, this tweet that you put out, I think, sums it up very, very succinctly. Just mind-blowing when you think about it. But here's your tweet.
So full disclosure before you read it, that was me. I was the congregant. That happened in my struggle session.
All right. So, congregant, I believe if Paul said this about the Cretans today, you would call him in for church discipline. Specifically, the passage where he says Cretans are evil, lazy gluttons, right?
Yeah.
And then the elder says, yes, I'd certainly have some questions for him. And your commentary is, these people are absolutely cooked. Can you imagine some elders summoning the Apostle Paul to answer for racism? They would put God on trial if they could.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they would do. They would put God on trial if they could, because they are more righteous than God.
Yeah. God's a racist. He's a genocidal maniac to them.
Yeah, Jesus was insufficiently loving. How unlike of him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, these guys, if you would give these guys a written test, like, hey, this situation arises in your church, should you follow Matthew 18? Hey, Paul said this about the Cretans, and he also said this about loving one another. Are these two things in conflict? If you give it to them on paper, they will always pass. They're a bunch of theology dorks. I mean, they one of the elders leading up to this said, hey, I read and pray for hours and hours every day, often to the detriment of my family. And yet they can't pass the most basic, like, church discipline case. They can't do the most basic thing that we're called to do. They are absolutely cooked. They absolutely would put God on trial if they could. And even this, like, some Napark elder is going to call in the Apostle Paul to defend himself against the charge of racism. I mean, it's just absolutely asinine.
Yeah, there's a big difference between book knowledge and actual real world knowledge. And so many people miss this, that, there are people who have gone to medical school, graduated magna cum laude, absolutely passed with flying colors, get into the surgery and their patient dies on the table.
Yeah.
And it's because they have the book knowledge. They know what to do in theory, but in practice, their practice is all messed up. And unfortunately, the pastorate is full of these people who they can tell you the creeds and confessions, they can recite scripture, and those are good things. And I would really, those are qualifying elements for any elder. But if you don't have the heart of your people, if you don't know the struggles of your congregants, if you're not in their lives helping to lead them in the way that is true, in the way that is right, in the way that is beautiful, you're not leading them at all.
That's right.
And unfortunately, many such cases. Many such cases.
Well, and I try to be gracious because there's always going to be a gap between what you know and how you apply it to your life. Like, that's all of us. We all have a gap. But when you're actually confronted with that gap and you reject the correction, you persist in your error, the only thing that can be chalked up is either you're a fool or an enemy. Anything else is just, those are really the only two options I can think of when you just absolutely reject being shown this issue in your life, the gap between your knowledge and your practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On that note about the vague sins kind of thing, so you were accused of murder, which sounds crazy, but the logic, if I was to give it the fairest or the best construction, as Luther would put it. By the way, if I ever make T-shirts, I want to get Luther with a hammer, like a cartoon kind of thing, and it's best construction, it's a construction company.
Yeah, that's I just made that joke today to my wife.
Oh, you should call your LLC that or something. I don't know. Anyways,
best construction.
It's just something to think about every time I say that. So the best construction I put on that is that they're saying you have shown that you hate your brother.
Yes.
And Jesus clearly says that if you have hate for your brother in your heart, then you have murdered him.
Yeah.
So therefore you have committed murder. So the real, and I imagine you did this to some extent, but then the real accusation is that I hate someone.
Yes. Yes.
So where did that go in that conversation?
Yeah. So in my particular case, and I will say this, most of the time they will not put their finger down in one of the 10 commandments or anything like that. To my elders' credit, they did. And I agreed with their understanding of that commandment. I just disagreed that I broke the commandment.
Right.
So that's where I began to press them to say, hey, show me where I've done this. Show me where I've tweeted something that is hateful. Because I can guarantee you, anything you show me, I will show you a very clear way that you can hold this belief and not hate these people.
Yes.
And they didn't bring any tweets, of course. So what they kind of alluded to a couple of things that I tweeted. And one of them was about, I recently said, black violent criminals need to be put to death. The lesser criminals need to be deported, and segregation needs to be considered. Now, again, these guys know that I lived in a segregated society for, a chunk of my time in my 20s. It was a little bit horrifying at first. You're like, how backwoods is this place? But then you begin to realize, these guys tried to live at peace with each other for 400 years and could not do it.
Yeah.
And finally, I think it was in the 60s, they had an actual legal segregation. The black people in the Philippines were put up on tribes, and they live and have their own society there. The rest of the Filipinos have their society. They can commingle, they can do business together, but they all go back to their places where they live. They all have their own churches. We would put on a church conference, and they would all come together for the church conference. They'd have a good time, and then they'd go back to their own places because they have very, very different lifestyles. And so I got to see how segregation was actually a very good thing in that situation. And it saved, the murder stopped. The Filipino people did not have to fear, drunks hanging out on the streets, people getting raped and molested. One of the big problems over there was witchcraft in those tribes. They didn't have to worry about that in their part of town. That all took place up on the tribes where I was ministering. And so I was happy to try to explain it. But again, these guys know this about me. They know that I lived over there, but that goes out the window. And so the only explanation can be that I hate these people. And one of the kind of weird telling things was I began to push the main elder who was kind of chairing the meeting on this. And I said, like, so for instance, do you have an issue with the death penalty in the first option? And he's like, no, I'm a big death penalty guy. I'm like, cool. I said, do you have an issue with the second part about deporting these people? And he's like, no, I'm a huge deportation guy. I said, okay, so then it's the third part. It's the segregation. He's like, no, actually, I grew up in Hawaii and we were segregated from these other people. And he went into this long spiel about that. And I'm like, what the hell is the problem? Like, why are you even bringing this tweet up? So you're admitting that you can hold all of these views and not hate those people. So why are you accusing me of hate based on this tweet? Which kind of brings us to the next part, which is the next play in this playbook, which is like somebody could interpret this as being hateful. So therefore, we're charging you with hate. And that's the thing that I would say that is probably the most common thread through all of this is I know what you're saying. I know that you don't hate these people, but because some old liberal woman, some elder's wife, some black guy who got his legs blown off, who was molested by a Down syndrome kid when he was a child. It was like that they could possibly interpret it this way. And so therefore you're guilty of this sin, you know? And so I just, in my situation, I made the case, like, you can hold me accountable for the things that I say. You cannot hold me accountable for the things that I did not say. I'm not going to defend these things that I did not put out there. I'm happy to defend my words. But what they want to do is to kind of lay the sin on you that somebody could concoct in their mind based on your tweet.
Yeah. Well,
many such cases, I'm afraid. So we've already talked about, the playbook consists of women complaining.
Yep.
Going to the elders, not going to the person who has offended them, which probably has something to do with the fact that they don't have proper headship.
Yeah.
If you are not a person who is functioning under proper headship, you are not going to have a head that can deal with these things in a proper way. So that's one main issue. The second is vague accusations, accusations of general meanness, general not walking with the spirit, but nothing specific, right?
Yeah.
What are some other elements that you noted as being a common theme in a lot of these situations?
Well, I would say so we got the women kind of are almost always behind this. We've got the Matthew 18 getting set aside. We've got the vague sins. We've got the laying a charge on you based on how somebody could possibly interpret your tweets. I would say another very, very common one is I'm trying to figure out how to kind of phrase this, but it is done, everything kind of being done in an unofficial capacity. They don't want to go through the church discipline process because you can appeal, you can take it to a higher court, you can go public, you can do all of these things if you go through an official process. Oftentimes these things are kind of done off the books in order to avoid that. And in my case, for instance, it was not, I did not get hit with church discipline. I did not get excommunicated. It was I guess it's an official meeting, but there was no actual charges, mention of church discipline, nothing like that. It was kind of done in a way that it's like, okay, well, I can't be here anymore. And that's a common thing. You look back at the Daniel Keene situation. It was unofficial, off the books. You're not welcome at this church anymore. Mm-hmm. That is another very, very common play. But it kind of leads into another thing. It's less common, but it's more vicious. And that is there are some, and I think I mentioned this earlier, who will go through the official channels. The RPCNA, the ARP, the LCMS, but they will violate all of their own rules in order to get what they want. So just a couple of quick examples of this. There was one guy who was in I think he was in the LCMS. No, he was in the SBC. They were willing to go through the official channels with him. He said, okay, I disagree with your conclusion. The Constitution says that I could take my case to the congregation because I believe I'm being mistreated by the elders. So they said, okay, cool, let's do that. And they set the meeting so that he could go before the congregation in like a month. Something like that. In the meantime, the next week on the back of the bulletin, there was a little announcement that they read all the other announcements from the pulpit. They didn't read that one. And it said, we're going to be voting next week on an amendment to the Constitution. The next week rolls around, they send out the ballots for them to vote. And they don't say what they're going to be changing. They just say, will you give your elders permission to change the Constitution, yes or no?
Wow.
They got some sort of approval. They went in, removed that from the Constitution, and that guy was excommunicated. Just like that. Didn't get to appeal his.
Wow.
And so you see that kind of thing happening over and over again. There was another guy who took it to presbytery. This was in the ARP, I believe. And so they go to presbytery. There's a guy who's supposed to be chairing the meeting, like an impartial third party. He ends up getting sick that day, supposedly. And so they have to put somebody else in there. And this happens on the spot. And so the pastor who's prosecuting this guy chooses his best friend to chair the meeting. The best friend gets up to chair the meeting and it's like, listen, I've known this pastor for 20 years. I trust him. That's that. You're gone. And
Wow.
So there's this constant kind of, using the system against people. In the LCMS, I saw 3 particular cases. And also there's Corey Mahler went through the exact same thing where they excommunicated somebody in absentia, meaning in their absence. Now that is permissible in the LCMS as long as that person is refusing to attend the meeting. You can excommunicate them without them being there. And you could do that with I think it's a 3/4 vote. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It could be 3/4. So in these particular situations, these three men had, and these are not linked together. They don't know each other, to my knowledge.
Independent. That's the thing about a playbook is it's not like somebody's coming in and giving these orders from on high. This is just a pattern of behavior that is noted across these different denominations and these different churches, things that have happened.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like the playbook is not coming from on high, but from below. And in these 3 cases, these guys all had people on their elder boards who would have sided with them in their cases. And so they would not have been able to get the unanimous decision to excommunicate these men. And so what they did was these pastors either took out restraining orders and barred these men from entering the church property, or just simply told them, you are not allowed to come to the church property. And then they held the case on the church property where that man can't come. So then when they go to excommunicate them in absentia, their friends don't make up the majority. And so these guys get their 3/4 vote. They don't need a unanimous vote anymore. And they get to excommunicate these guys. Mahler, if I understand correctly, went through this himself. That's exactly what happened with him. And they actually did trespass him from the property.
So they definitely did. Yeah, they did the trespass thing because then they got the cops involved.
Yeah.
And which is weak. I
wanted
wanted to.
He was holding donuts talking to cops.
Yeah. Which is it was like, hey guys, you want some donuts? I know y'all love donuts. Like, here you go. Hey, I wanted to note that I think this is the first time this has ever happened. We got 100 people watching live. I don't think we've ever hit 100. Nice. I was watching it float around there for a bit, and it finally broke it. So
nice.
But also,
it's a big problem.
Magic. Oh no!
No, it went under. There you go.
Shouldn't have said something.
No, it's been going up and down. It's all right. When you're talking about the LCMS official channels, I had talked with my pastor and he was like, if someone in my church was like making or, you know, if someone in this church was making the scene that someone like Mailer or Woe or whoever, like, he's like, yeah, I'd probably have a conversation too. Right. And I'm like, yeah, that's
sure.
Okay. That's fair. But what he said that really shocked me was he had said, he said, what bothers me though, is that you know, dictum from on high came straight from the president of the LCMS.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. Like he was saying, like, this is an autonomous church. We own this building.
Yeah.
You know, we are not Presbyterians. If we want, we can leave the LCMS and we will keep all of our grounds, which are awesome, by the way. It's a huge plot of land.
Nice.
We own this. Honestly, we don't even really get all that much help from the LCMS. Sure. It's funny that we've been talking about, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but we've been talking about trying to get the school going again. We had a private Lutheran school for many years, not currently. And, you know, if we were in another, you know, if we were in Africa and we wanted to get our private Lutheran school going, well, shoot, here's all the money in the world. Oh my goodness, let me throw you know. And,
absolutely.
But because we live in Texas and we have 2 occasional unrelated black guys in the entire congregation, I think, if I'm counting properly, one of them is just kind of passing through. He's going to be moving somewhere east, I think. Both cool guys, both guys I've hung out with. We do a lot of Baptist style meals after church. But,
nice.
Great guys, but yeah, we've only got the 2. Maybe we need to put them at the forefront of any pictures that we take. Hey guys, this church over here wants to have a private Christian school. So it's frustrating. So, all that to say, they don't give us enough to where we owe them something like that, to where what's a goofy dude's name that is the president of the LCMS?
Something Johnson, isn't it?
No, it's boy.
But that, when it comes to LCMS specifically, that's one thing that we saw with Ryan Turnipseed. It was just absolutely against rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Against excuse me. Against the rules of the denomination. The president of the denomination is explicitly in the bylaws forbidden from calling for the excommunication of individuals of churches.
Yeah.
And yet that explicitly and openly happened.
Yeah.
And it was proven. It was proven in the court of public opinion, in the public sphere. Look, this is what happened. Here's the letter. Here is the email of him saying, you've got that Ryan guy. You need to get rid of him. And, well, what do you know? It happened.
Yeah.
And it was very good what Ryan was able to do. You know, he just went down the street, went to a different church, walked in the door, got communed, and they said, yep, we have no problem with him. But not everybody has that ability.
Right.
You know, if you're a devout Lutheran, if you've been going to a Lutheran church your whole life, if you're very convinced of the Lutheran faith, and there's one Lutheran church within 100 miles of you, and they kick you out, what are you supposed to do? And you're supposed to go to the happy clappy Baptist church down the road that doesn't serve communion on Sunday?
Right.
What are you supposed to do in that situation? So I'm glad that it did turn out well for Ryan, but it didn't turn out well for Mahler or for Ryan. You know, these men were persecuted by their church explicitly because of their podcast, and then they were punished in an extrajudicial way.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically it was a judicial way, but not according to the rules.
Yeah.
In an unjust way, these men were persecuted for their faith and their actions. And so that is the fourth point here in this playbook is violation of the rules.
Yeah.
when it is done officially, it's done in a way that violates the rules, that breaks the rules, or we change the rules just for you. And you don't have to be expert in, African dictatorships and, corrupt governments in the Middle East to know that if we're voting to change the Constitution for this one particular case, and, we'll probably go back next year and just drop that back in because we got what we wanted. We got what we wanted. We got our pound of flesh. We're happy. Let's all go home. These men will stand before God for the thing that they have done. And that is despicable. That's disgusting. But unfortunately, where we see, when it is an official process, a lot of times, especially in Baptist circles, it's done unofficially. When it is done officially, violation of the rules, changing of the rules, unjust weights and measures. God says he despises unjust weights and measures. And these men will not be held guiltless on the day of judgment for what they have done.
Oh, 100%. I get almost sick to my stomach thinking about these men standing before God and answering for what they did to the people whose souls they were charged with the care of. And I mean, that's a serious thing. And I'll say two things. One, the reason that they have to change these rules is that so often these constitutions, these Presbyterian bylaws and things like this were written by men in a different generation, whether it be even the 90s, let alone the 60s or the 40s or whatever. These men, so if you actually followed the rules, men like Mahler, Woe, myself, this gentleman who I was just mentioning, they changed the Constitution for, these LCMS guys who were run out on a rail, they would be vindicated if the rules were followed. So you have to change the rules because they were written by men who were not pearl clutching, who were not worried about tone and all of these different things. And so they have to work against their fathers in order to excommunicate their sons. That's what it comes down to. Secondly, going back to something that you said earlier, Sean, about the Lutherans and the president getting involved and all of these things. With Presbyterians, it's even gayer than that because they don't have a president. They don't have a bishop. There's nobody above them. And so what happens in my case in particular, one of the big things that kind of fired this thing off was that like the famous people in my denomination began to reach out to my pastor. Danny Hyde in the URCNA is kind of a big deal. I don't understand why. I mean, the guy's unbearable, absolutely unbearable. I suspect that R. Scott Clark, and he and Hyde are close. In fact, he was a member of Hyde's church for a while. I suspect he was involved as well, simply because he's had me blocked for years. And then when this thing, people were tagging him and Hyde, he unblocked me. And then, I made some comment to him yesterday, so I'm reblocked. But we don't even get a call from like somebody above us or somebody who has more authority. We get a call from like a celebrity, and these pastors fold. One of the pieces of advice I gave to my pastor when this stuff kind of started popping off, when I knew that they were searching the Secretary of State website and things like that, one of my pieces of advice to him was like, hey, they're going to start calling you. Don't pick up the phone. They're going to email you. Don't open the emails. They're going to write you letters. I think there was like, I think there was 13 churches who were calling and going to write letters against me. And I'm like, throw it in the trash. Don't worry about it. Because if you begin to open this thing up and read this stuff, you are going to spiral. You are going to think the whole world is against you. If you just wait like 2 weeks, all of this will blow over. They'll be trying to murder somebody else. Just let it go. Well, when Danny Hyde calls in the URCNA, you pick up the phone. And so it's even gayer because it's like, I can almost understand if it's like, okay, you're a priest and your bishop calls. But when it's like some dork in Southern California who preaches in the shadow of Westminster West, don't pick up the phone. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like these guys are losers. Leave it alone. Let it rest. But I still, even after all this, have a deep love for my pastor. I always will, even though I believe that he sinned against me egregiously. There's a deep personal connection there that I will always have. For me, it's like when my mother had cancer, he was in the hospital room with her after only meeting her one time. He's baptized my daughter. He baptized all my nieces and nephews. He's known me since I was a kid. I've traveled the States with him. But again, all of that kind of has to be shoved out the window because, hey, Danny Hyde said, some old divorced lady said, the people on Reddit are saying, and so you go, okay, well, if you're not going to be a shepherd and drive the wolves away from your sheep, then you're not going to be my shepherd at all. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And
that's a whole nother element of this situation is the unofficial popery of the Protestant church. Where, if so-and-so calls, what actual official capacity does this person have over this church? Literally none.
Zero.
They might even be in a different denomination. But there are men who, in Baptist churches, if Doug Wilson, a Presbyterian in Idaho, called your Baptist church in Mississippi and said, hey, your guy's really bad, look what he said online, that would be grounds for excommunication. A man who is unrelated in any way. Yeah. And this unofficial popery is killing the church. Martin Luther led a revival against this sort of thing. Just this sort of thing. What is a man in Rome doing, telling us what to do in the middle of Germany? What is a guy in Idaho, an old fat man in Idaho, who, credit where credit's due, has done great things in his community.
100%.
But what does he have to do with what you are doing in your community? And the answer is nothing. Nothing at all.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I've actually was just mentioning this that we Presbyterians have kind of traded in one pope for 1,000, and so whether it's your favorite celebrity or the Presbyterian minister who you look up to, or this Tim Keller was a big one. He kind of reigned large on a lot of these churches. That was a lot of it actually early on with me, is that I wasn't being winsome like Tim Keller, and I wasn't being ironic and all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, what does that do with anything? But you kind of live in the shadow of these Presbyterian ministers. And we've seen how that's played out time and time again, with them either falling or, when Sproul died, Burke Parsons gets his church. Burke Parsons is excommunicated or disciplined or whatever, kind of run out of there because he was involved in sin. A lot of the people reaching out to me were saying, hey, you need to look into what's going on at Reformation Bible College, Sproul's college down there, because the same thing's happening down there. So as soon as the big guy falls, if he was good to begin with, like I don't think Keller was good to begin with, but say Sproul, who I do have a lot of respect for, when he falls, then you're kind of left with this mess that you're still living under. Or in my situation, my now previous denomination, the URC, is famously gay. I mean, it is the R2K denomination. It's the denomination that gave us Michael Horton. It's the denomination that gave us R. Scott Clark and Danny Hyde and Bob Godfrey and all of these guys. And but we kind of have to live under their shadow because they feel like I'm giving the URC a black eye. Now keep this in mind. Like Michael Horton is going through a divorce. If the divorce might already be final, I don't know. He is, he holds the J. Gresham Machen Chair of Systematic Theology and Apologetics, yet wrote an article calling J. Gresham Machen a racist. And going further to say that Thornwell and Dabney have nothing to offer the modern church because they were so racist. I know that'll get you going, Sean. This is a guy who wrote an apologetic for sodomite civil unions, saying we need to support this because sodomites deserve the same rights that straight people have. But I'm the one giving a black eye because I'm pushing back on sodomy and pornography and immigration and all of these things. And yet, somehow I'm the guy giving a black eye, while this guy, Michael Horton, still an associate pastor in a church, even though his household's falling apart, still a professor at Westminster West. And these guys salivate over trying to get him to come speak at their conferences, but I'm giving the church a black eye. It's just absolutely wild.
I was gonna add the online pressure as part of the playbook, but I think you've already kind of done that as like unofficial popery and then online pressure, because a lot of it really is, like you had said, it just feels like the walls are closing in on you because for whatever reason, your pastor has to be online. I have to know who Doug Wilson hates today. If I don't, I'll be out of the loop. And I mean, there's pastors that can handle that, and those who can, I encourage them to handle that. But I think if we're really being honest, the vast majority of pastors today should not try to be culture warriors. They should try to handle the church that the monumental task of having one church. They should try to handle that first before I have to handle all the churches. If I find one racist on Twitter, I have to make sure that I'm, calling around and we got to get rid of that guy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's the online pressure thing is a huge problem. And, one of the things I talk to young guys too, when the pressure starts coming, and it will, if you post anything out there that's controversial, if you get any traction at all, the pressure is going to start coming. And if you're not good at dealing with pressure, just don't delete your social media. Don't go out there and try to defend yourself to 1,000 different people. Just batten down the hatches for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, and it'll all blow over. It'll all be gone. They'll be on to the next guy that they want to murder. And that's my advice about many things, including just life in general. The things that are bothering you today, in 3 weeks, they're not going to be bothering you. It's the same with this online pressure. Things move, things change. These guys are constantly looking for somebody to kill, somebody to harm. If you go on there and you try to defend yourself, or take the pastors, for instance, if you're going to read all of these tweets, if you're going to open all the emails and the text messages and the physical mail, if you're going to take the phone calls, this is going to seem like it's unavoidable. But if you just wait a couple of weeks, it's all gone. 100% of it is gone. They're on to their next thing. And so just patience and endurance on that front is a wise thing to have.
A lot of people don't seem to know that you can temporarily delete social media.
Yeah, sure.
Ask me how I
deactivate.
I've used that.
I've missed you, man. I've missed you for real.
I've used that. I've used that a couple times. But one thing I wanted to say, we'd probably go to comments after this, but the big problem I have is that the motivation that pastors have for doing this, for kicking right-wing guys out of churches, is, for whatever the motivation is, it's not the care of souls.
Yes.
And that is a huge problem, because when church discipline is described in Scripture, it is truly like, they call it handing this person over to Satan.
Yes.
And unless there's a really extreme reason why that needs to happen, and by extreme reason, I mean there's an unrepentant sin that has been addressed, everyone knows about it, and now you need the toughest of loves, which is to be outside of the care of the church.
Yeah.
And as a Lutheran, it strikes very differently. And I've had this conversation with Woe. I don't think I've ever had this conversation with Mailer, but I was just kind of like, hey man, you don't have to dox yourself, but are you ever able to take communion or whatever? Is there a situation? And he said, me and Mailer have resigned ourselves to the belief we will never again take communion. And man, dude, that hit like a ton of bricks. That's when it became oh man, I'm really sad about this, to that really pisses me off.
Yeah.
There's not a pastor who can just step up. And I know surely there's a pastor in the world or in America who would, but distance. exist. We don't, you don't want to do the webcam thing where it's like, hey, can you do the words of institution over the web for me real quick, and then just
like Chris Roseborough. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I mean, the Bible specifically refers to it as handing over to Satan, and these pastors aren't acting like that's what this is.
Yeah.
Okay. When you excommunicate someone from your church, you are turning over their soul and their family to be tormented by the devil.
Yeah.
And if you think that God is not going to take that seriously, if you do that to one of his faithful children, that you just turn him over to be tormented by the devil, for his family to be plagued by evil spirits, you do that just because you don't like something he said on social media, or even something that you didn't necessarily dislike, but some celebrity pastor got offended about, or some woman in your congregation got her panties all in a wad over something you said on social media. That's a very serious thing to do.
Yeah.
But they're not treating it like that. They're acting like, look, you're annoying, go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, if that is your position, the unofficial, please find a different church is much more understandable. But that's not what you're doing. You are turning these people over to Satan. You are giving them over to be destroyed because you got upset by something that the founders of your denomination would have said in a much meaner way.
Yeah.
In a much plainer and more offensive way.
Yep.
They paint the tombs of the prophets whom they slew.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and a couple of things. It's like from my former church's pulpit, many times the elder who is kind of leading this charge against me has got up there and he loves Luther. He reads Luther from the pulpit all the time. And when I left the church, I recorded that entire meeting. They did ask me to turn my phone off in the beginning, and I was like, I'm not turning my phone off. This is getting recorded. So yeah, right. So I recorded it. Well, when I got home, I gave it to Samuel, and for Samuel to listen through it. And I knew that if I left, Sam was going to leave, but he was going to leave not just on my word, but on what actually transpired. And one of the things Sam pointed out is just like, that you get up there and read Luther every time you're behind the pulpit, and you would drive that man from your church. You would absolutely. And I know that gets thrown around a lot. Like our pastors would drive out Martin Luther. They drive out John Calvin or Chrysostom, all the men that they claim to love. And so I think that's lost some of its punch over the years. But when you really think about it, like these men dwell in buildings built by these fathers. They dwell in denominations formed by these fathers. They read the works written by these fathers, and they hate these men. They think that they love these men, but they hate these men. And that is a very, very common thing.
They like the idea of being fond of Luther.
Yeah. Well, and I brought that up in that meeting, and I got this long roundabout explanation. Well, we take the good and we leave the bad, and all of these things. And that's when I brought up that question that you read from my tweet about Paul. And I said, well, you can't take the bad and leave the bad and take the good with Paul. It's all good. So I think that you would excommunicate Paul. And that's when that elder said, well, I have some questions for him about that. And which blew my mind again, like a Napark elder thinking, oh yeah, I'll call on the Apostle Paul and he'll answer up to me. But that is an ongoing problem of these are the same people who would absolutely have run Machen out of the church. They would have been on the team that made Machen have to leave and go start Westminster. Go start his denomination.
I mean, these men would attempt to murder Dabney.
Oh yeah, they hate Dabney.
There's just no two ways about it. They absolutely would seek that man to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and more. And that's another element that I wanted to bring up about this playbook is there's one element we've talked about a little bit, but the blackmailing and doxing that goes on. When in your case, They're literally searching government files for your name to see if it comes up in a church directory somewhere.
Yeah. And
these people are sparing no expense to hunt down men.
Yeah.
And we see that with it's not church related, but the Young Republicans that had their private chat doxed to the liberal media by a Jewish member of their Young Republicans group who sold out his fellows for a pat on the head from the other side. And the reaction to that, I've seen the reaction to that has mostly been positive. A lot of people posting pictures of Charlie Kirk, Aranya Zalutska, and pictures of the young man who was murdered by a black at his high school. Track meet, I forget his name. I'm sorry.
The one out in Frisco. I can't think of his name.
But posting pictures of them and saying, I don't care about a leaked group chat. And that's the right response. That's the correct response. But a lot of people don't have the ability to stand up like that. Just in their soul, they are weak. They don't have the strength to do what must be done, to say what must be said, and stand against the persecutors. And unfortunately, that's very common. And it's used as a tool intentionally. Posting your name, your address, your children's names, and their pictures, because they want what happened to Charlie Kirk to happen to you. They want these bad things to happen to you. And it's not just it's not just the rabid leftists who want this. It's also it's also Doug Wilson. People like this. Doug Wilson is not afraid of doxing people. He's done it many times. He likes doing it. He gets a kick out of it. But here is Doug Wilson talking about this situation of the leaked group chats. He says, the reason I don't care about a leaked group chat leak is that it is a great way to identify people. Yeah. And, I reposted this with a little commentary, and I said, Doug Wilson won't personally shoot you in the neck, but he'll gleefully give your name and address to the people who will. Yeah, absolutely. And he'll say no fundamental wrong has been committed. No, colossal, universal wrong has been committed by this act of doxing against you, ruining your life, getting you fired from your job. It's sad that he got shot in the neck, but ultimately he got what he was asking for because he said some things that made people really upset. Yeah. And that is the behavior of otherwise good men in the church. They will sell you out for 30 shekels of silver and a pat on the head because they want to be the good boys. They want to be seen by men. They want the accolades of men, and they do not sufficiently fear the retribution and the justice of God. Yeah. Well, and a good example of, this ties in loosely, but of elders just kind of famously not knowing what time it is even in my struggle session, one of the things that was said to me, and this was, I think my struggle session was on September 26th. Charlie was shot on the 10th. One of the things that was said to me is, Ethan, if you spoke more like Charlie Kirk, you wouldn't have these issues. And I said, they actually literally shot him in the neck a few weeks ago. So that doesn't say, but it's like, these guys just do not know what time it is. And that doesn't wash. It doesn't wash. And to take your point a little bit further, these men, so like in my case, there was Antifa and Black Lives Matter people who were coming after me, who were doing that research on the Secretary of State website. And it's like my elders ended up doing the work of Antifa and Black Lives Matter. They ended up dancing when they were told to dance. They ended up doing the very thing that those wicked groups that they would oppose on paper, what they wanted to happen is what my elders made happen, and that's happening again, just across the board. You have elders who end up doing the work of Satan, who end up being the accuser of the brethren when the brethren are innocent. At the end of the day, most of these struggle sessions, mine included, is you are not sufficiently liberal.
if you were just a little bit more liberal, this would all be okay. You wouldn't be in here. So it's like, we had people in our denomination or in my church who believed in gentle parenting and taught that it was sinful to spank your children. They put that out there on their Facebooks. If I put something about immigration, now the Bible speaks specifically about spanking children. This contradicts scripture. If I speak about immigration, I get Holden before the elders. They will make a mile of room to their left and not 1 inch to their right. They will crucify anybody to their right if anybody to the left complains about it.
Give us Barabbas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, it reminds me, one of the cases that was sent to me showing why this is why I was so outraged about this. Again, it's like, I've got a wonderful family. I've got, and my wife and daughter, my brother and his family, my parents are fantastic. I have really, really good friends that would die for me. It's like, I have a great setup as a man. I've got companies, I've got money, I've got all of these things. I can weather a storm from a church. These other young guys don't have that. And so, there was one, the very last sentence that this man wrote me when he was telling me about his situation. He wrote, "Please anonymize this. I don't really trust anybody after what happened, even though I don't really have much more left to lose." And it broke my heart to know that these young guys they're not set up the way that we're set up. They don't have the things that we have. And the men who are in charge of the care of their souls go out and seek to do damage to them because they're not sufficiently liberal, or because some old bat put pressure on them. Some cow of Bashan came and mooed in their ears. And so they've got to jump. They've got to do it. They've got to put this kid out. And you see these young guys like this who are driven from the only church, in my case, it's the only church I've ever been a member of since I've been a Christian. I've faithfully served there as a deacon. I've been there for over a decade of my life. And these men are driven from these churches because they're not sufficiently liberal, because some lady complained about them, because Black Lives Matter and Antifa didn't like them. So the elders end up doing the work of Satan.
Yeah.
There's a verse I was thinking of that obviously is pretty popular, but it's in the, is it 7 woes? Is that the amount of woes going on in the scripture?
Oh, yeah.
This is Luke 11:47 and following. "Woe to you, for you build the tombs of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. In fact, you bear witness that you approve the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed kill them, and you build your tombs.
Yeah.
Therefore, the wisdom of God also said, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will kill and persecute." Yeah, it's just it's very much it's almost backwards from the way that you usually hear people try to apply this today. Like, there was a big when the TGC got really gay. When the SBC got really gay, I guess TGC was always kind of gay, but when was that? That would have been 2018-ish, I think is about the time period I'm thinking of.
Okay.
It was when the SBC was in Dallas down the street, and they were talking about, well, you guys say that you like Martin Luther King, but like, you wouldn't have marched with him. You would have been the guy saying that he was, he was a commie or whatever. And I'm like,
yes.
I'm the guy right now saying he's a commie. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I didn't
but like,
the police line.
But they were using, I want to say it was even Russell Moore who was doing it, but he was like, you're the guys, you say you love the prophets, but if you were there, you would have been the guy killing him.
Yeah.
And now we have, we were talking about like Dabney.
Yeah.
I'll use him as an example, but like I don't even, I'm trying to think how to word this. Like, they hate him now, but like, I feel like a lot of those same people would have probably liked him if they saw him, like, if they were like in his church.
Yes.
Right?
They're just men of their times.
Right. And they would give that grace. Right. But I guess that's the problem, is like, it's okay to be that, but just not in 2025. Like
yes,
it's the current year. We have to, you know, like you would say, like you're not sufficiently liberal. You know,
the
you didn't
spirit
have
of the age.
Yeah, you didn't have to be that liberal back then. So those guys,
right.
I get it. I mean, you have guys like, what's that idiot's name? Reformed Zoomer or Redeemed Zoomer? What's one of them? I think is a friend, and one of them is a guy that I don't like. I can't think of.
Reformed Zoomer is our guy. Redeemed Zoomer is the.
There dork. You go. Yeah. Okay. He had put out on, this was probably years ago now. He had put a thing out where he grabbed like 3 tomes of Dabney. Like it must have been like the complete works of Dabney. Like it was quite a lot. And he was like, "Oh, I just came back from the library here to see what Dabney's all about." And then an hour later, and I had the screenshots of it. No, it was literally 1 hour later. He had in the next like picture in his story was update.
Crying? No.
Yeah, right. Update. Dabney sucks. He was a slave owner and all this and blah blah blah. And I'm like, really? You read all that in an hour? Like you skipped right to that part, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's really incredible. I was like, dude, you took a picture. You took a picture of these books as like a, ooh, look, I
this
read
book here, Dabney on Fire. This you could read probably in an hour. It's not. Yeah. It's not too long, right? It's what is it? 5 different essays, and it's 121 pages, right? This is 4 different essays, 121 pages. You could read this in an hour. Recommend you do. Good luck. Get it. Available on Amazon still. Amazon doesn't know who Dabney is, or else this would be as banned as the Camp of the Saints. But you could read that in an hour and know that Dabney is our guy.
Yes.
That we are his children.
Yeah.
That he was fighting the fight back then that we're fighting today. And the ramifications of what was going on then is what's going on today. Women's suffrage, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
All of the thing that's just absolutely mind-boggling is the man was absolutely a prophet. He predicted everything going on in our society right now, down to the periods on the page. I mean, the guy saw it. He was clairvoyant. And if anything, he was a little too conservative with how much time it was going to take. Yeah. But he knew what was going to happen because he was a man who read his scriptures and he was a student of history. And for some young twink, some retard on Twitter to be like, oh, I got the works of Dabney. I cursorily glanced through and I've discovered that, you know what? It's all a bunch of hype and no need. Yeah,
but the problem is that he clearly did not read He took the picture and then he went on Wikipedia and said like, "What? Controversies? Oh, he was Stonewall Jackson's chief of staff.
And all
that.
Based,
but Chris Hookins in the Hookins. Hookins. Sorry. Forgive me, Chris. He mentioned Defense of Virginia, and that was something I was going to refer to. Is that in that book, one of the things like people hate about Dabney is that in that book he said, you know, now that you've freed all these slaves and done XYZ, you know their crime rate is going to go through the roof, right? And people hate that he said that, but you know what?
Yeah,
that's why people today, like us, will put crime statistics up on the internet and make the memes about
1358.
It's up to like 1260 or something like that. I think is the most recent peak or something like that. But anyways, just like, because it's like, okay, but this guy said it would happen, and then he was proven right. Just by time, the passage of time showed that he was correct. And why does that make him a bad guy? He said, if you do this, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And
why
then
are
it
you
happened.
booing me? I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, and maybe this could fit into the playbook because it did get brought up a lot in these different meetings. But one of the accusations that's brought against me, is brought against others, is that like you don't understand. Like the reason Luther or Dabney or Thornwell held to these things is because they were just men of their times. Mm-hmm. and I stop and go, your beliefs literally have never existed except for the last 80 years. You are a man of your times. These men are in line with all of church history. And your little belief set, your views on race, your views on sex piety, your views on Presbyterian government or whatever, have only existed since after World War II. But you claim that these guys are men of their times. Yeah.
In living memory.
Like if you put it on a timeline, you would have a consistent view of all of these things until the 40s, 50s, 60s. You'd see this one generation or two generations stepping out of line with their fathers and then claiming that everybody who comes after them are the ones who are out because we're out of line with Doug Wilson. So therefore we're out of line with all the fathers, or we're out of line with Tim. No, it's these last couple of generations that stepped out of line. We are in a long line of godly men. It's like it's a little short period. Your views did not exist outside of this little tiny period of time. You are men of your time. These men are men of history. It's a very arrogant statement, and it's brought up. Like I said, it's brought up to me. It's been brought up to a lot of these guys. So it probably could make the playbook as well.
It's also chronological snobbery is what it is.
Yes.
I am an enlightened person because I live in a year that is after the year this guy lived in.
Yeah, right.
And it's just insane.
And yet somehow our theologians get gayer and weaker. Our pastors get gayer and weaker. And yet somehow they're better than all of these brilliant men who came before and just didn't know about race. They didn't know about black people. It's like, good grief, man.
What,
like
can I just say the ultimate irony in that is like, well, if these guys would have just like met a black guy, they would have really liked him. No, that's probably the opposite of that. Like,
Dabney did. So
historic. Yeah, and that's what's really crazy is like Dabney was absolutely surrounded by black people.
Yeah,
like Dabney, that's where his opinions came from. He lived in Virginia at a time. Well, I mean, it's still true today. Like Virginia is full of black people.
Sure.
So he didn't just like, oh, I've heard tell that they aren't very smart or whatever. He's writing like, oh, dude, crime rate's going to go through the roof. I got to make sure. Yeah. And it's like he wrote that book. I mean, it's a defense of Virginia, but it's like he wrote that book. Not necessarily to persuade anybody, but just to say, I told you so.
Yeah.
Like he didn't expect it. It's like he didn't actually expect to persuade any Yankees with it, but just to be like, your children are going to love
told
it.
You. Like, right. Well, and to play on that irony, it's like, look at Dabney surrounded by black people, knows what he's talking about. Then look at Doug Wilson, who I think there's like 3 black people, and one of them is his H-1B employee that works for him in all of Moscow. It's like, but you're the guy who knows, you're the guy who gets it. And Dabney, who is surrounded by this and working through these issues, he was the boots on the ground. And that's the issue. Like, I brought this up with Luther dealing with the Jews. I'm like, listen, the Jews, we know that these guys lie to us. We know what they do. Luther was our guy on the ground. He saw, I'm going to trust him over the people who hate Jesus. Like, I'm going to believe Luther. He gets the benefit of the doubt in all of this.
Yeah. Who are you going to believe? Your forefathers or what the Jews said about your Christian forefathers?
100%.
What your Christian forefathers said about the Jews or what the Jews said about your Christian forefathers?
Yeah.
Well, that's a line that is well trod. And we know where these people stand. They would murder their fathers, murdered the prophets, and they decorate their tombs. All right. So,
go
ahead real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say the one other thing I would say, I don't know how long we're going tonight, but I think
we've got comments we need to get to. So
sure, maybe we'll do that first. I'll hit this next.
All right. Well, just to sum up, the playbook, the things I've written down here is, first off, it starts off with blackmail and doxing.
Yeah.
These are people who are not, for the most part, in your life, in real life. These are people far away. And what plays into that is the next part, which is the unofficial popery and celebrity pastorates that run the denominations and have for a very long time. This didn't start with the internet, I'm afraid. Yeah. And then when it is someone in your life, it's often the next point, women complaining.
Yeah.
Women complaining. Pastors cannot, there's a lot of pastors, spineless. They can't stand up to the women in their life or their congregations. The pastor's wife is the true pastor of the church.
Yeah. The shadow elders.
Yep. The next point is vague accusations. Accusations that are often unsubstantiated. They won't nail down what specifically you did wrong. It's just, it was done in a spirit of unlovingness or, not sufficiently Christ-like. Then there's often an unofficial process. The unofficial process of it, we're not going to put you through a proper church court where you can defend yourself, where evidence is shown. It's just, you're presumed guilty and please go away. Yeah. And then when there is an official process, there's typically almost always a violation of rules, either changing the rules last second, as we've seen demonstrated here tonight. And I mean, everybody I'm sure has heard stories of this happening, where the rules were put there for a reason, and the reason was that justice would be sought. So the rules need to go. Yeah. So those are the points of this that I wrote down. Keep these in mind when you hear these stories, because now that you've heard it, now that you've seen it, you're going to see it over and over and over again, because this is a playbook. It is standard operating procedure. These people cannot do it right. They will not do it right. And so they're going to operate by these rules. Watch them. Be aware of what's going on. Record your conversations, because it's not good. It's not good, the situation that we find ourselves in right now. Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, let's get back into comments. And we've got Texas Refo says, howdy from Phil Lovelady. Hey, Phil, how you doing, man? He says, you can just do things. Also, this will show up in an Eli expose article on X now that I've commented. Well, I'll take it. Ben, fan of Phil, he says, Phil, yeah, good to have you, sir.
Phil's the OG, man.
He'll stand up to all kinds of scrutiny. And you know what? At the end of the day, he'll be just fine. You know why? Because he's as clean as a whistle. Yeah. He's a man who has lived a good life, who has been righteous. And when people tried to take him down, they couldn't do it.
That's right.
Couldn't do it. Sean, if you could take it from here, I'm kind of losing my voice here. I've been fighting a cold.
Dickie is saying that any press is good press, referring to the Eli expose. That whole little circle of little worm tongue people that are just like, hey, pastor, you should get rid of this guy. like come on, dude. Like, get that out of my face. We got Dickie again saying it was sneak peek. That was when you pulled up a Twitter thing and then quickly closed it again. I was like, ooh, what was that?
We got
Dickie again says they did put good on trial and they crucified him. That's right. And if they didn't want us to talk about him in the public square, they shouldn't have crucified him.
Yeah.
Whoever they are. To quote,
to quote the Romans,
to quote the brilliant monologue on SNL from Dave Chappelle, whoever they are. If you've ever seen that.
It's a coincidence.
Let's see. Pastrick, I prefer priestitude. That works. Trent still says, more reformed or biblical than Jesus is a big problem in reformed churches.
Yeah.
It's a big problem in a lot of churches. I mean, it's not just reformed churches. It's a thing, and it's frustrating, and I'm tired of it. Did I already say this one? That was like a double. Okay.
Yeah, that one got sent in twice.
Yeah. Ben Mordecai says similar problem the Pharisees had, Trent, which is that they were holier than God, essentially. Yeah. Their law system. Actually, that did make me think of something. So the way that somebody described the Pharisaical law system was that God's law will tell you, don't touch this wall. So what the Pharisees do is they build a fence in front of the wall and tell you don't touch the fence.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good analogy for what your pastors or former pastors were saying about, well, we're not saying you touch the wall, but we're saying somebody who saw you touch the fence might interpret that as touching the wall.
Yeah.
And so you broke the law we put in front of God's law.
Yeah.
And for that, you will pay.
You must die.
Yeah.
You are a murderer.
Meanwhile, you've got other people who have gone through the gate and touched the wall, but they were wearing gloves, so it's okay.
And they're broken, guys. They're allowed to touch the wall. They're broken.
Yeah.
That's the way Pharisaical law works, is it's, we're going to put up a boundary that is more than the law that God made, and you can't do it. But when we do it, we're going to, kill a chicken, wave it over our head first. And because of that, we're allowed to do it, but you can't do it because of the outer wall. You can't even do that much.
Yep.
That's right. I will accept impastor. That works. Hey, that works for both sexes. Jeff, you're still IFB. You've just become more independent. Extremely independent fundamentalist Baptist.
So when my brother was in college up in Longview, Texas, he was going to an IFB church that was Calvinist. And growing up IFB, everybody I knew was staunchly anti-Calvinist. And this was the first time I had ever run into true blue Calvinists who knew what they believed and why they believed it. And it was a shock to me that you could be IFB and be Calvinistic. So maybe you're right. Maybe I am still IFB today.
Why not? Frank Joseph Daniels says, please pray for me to do well in my studies. I am studying Christian ministry. I need prayer for energy, focus, and strength in Jesus' name. Yeah, man. Anyone watching, that is a worthy endeavor. Depending on what you're doing that for. I assume to be a pastor. We had guy when I was at California Baptist University. There was a degree that one of the professors who was like a main professor for that degree, like really crapped on the degree. But it was like a foreign missions degree or something. He was like, you don't need that. Just go.
Just go
out,
you can just do things.
If you have to study the language, that's one thing. But so anyways, hope everything goes well for everybody.
My missionary work in India that I did, a lot of Indians speak English, and those that didn't, we got translators for. I did all of it without any kind of a degree.
Boy, I sure wish a lot less of them spoke English. I'll tell you that.
Or at least didn't have internet access.
Yeah. What do we got here? How do you pronounce that? Grower Bart?
Grower Bart.
Okay. Says book knowledge. Yeah, I know folks that graduated with a 4.0. However, if their common sense were dynamite, they wouldn't have enough to blow their nose. Rim shot.
There's a difference between book smart and common sense.
Yep. Ben Mordecai says, as far as I know, all NAPARC and CREC churches own their own property. That might be true. I mean, he was referring to me talking about some presbyteries that own all the buildings.
I know it's big in like Episcopal circles, but
also
most presbyteries. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe I don't know. John Carr says LCMS president is Wilford Brimley. Yeah, that's not far from the truth. If you see a picture of him,
he
says,
he does. He looks like a super likable guy. Turns out he's not.
Yeah, Matthew Harrison is the LCMS president. That is correct. Yeah, for whatever reason, I totally blanked on his name, but yeah, he does look like Wilford Brimley, and he wears a cross that's like Flavor Flav size. It's huge, man. Okay.
It's to offset his huge belly.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure your phylacteries are sufficiently large.
Yeah. Dickie says if they change the rules just for you, then you know you're important. Yeah. I mean, you've obviously made a splash. Stanley Grandin says changing the church constitution under the table is absolutely insane. How do they sleep at night?
Yeah. Stanley's book is right there. Hold on.
Oh, there you go.
That's Which Stanley's book. The one that says the chief end of man, right next to yours.
Oh, nice.
The chief end of man. Stanley is. I love Stanley.
I remember. Dearly. I remember when you were talking about that book because I said, "Does it just say to glorify God and enjoy Him forever, like over and over and over again? Like the whole book is just that." Ben as is truly mind-boggling. Yes. Trent still says Horton is divorced, I believe, as of a couple of years ago. Don't know the details. And Ben says, I think the court filings are public.
They are.
Yeah. Dickie says temporarily just deleting social media is a half measure. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's for my purposes, it solves the problem. So I don't care. The high Calvinist, and I suspect this is the naughty kind of high based on this comment. You guys are capitalists, which means you're part of the problem. Your entire world is your entire worldview is tied to international Jewry.
I'm
smoking pot.
Go touch grass, dude. And not touch a different strain of grass. Let's go with that. Golly. You guys are capitalists. Well,
I'm not. I have had to participate in a capitalist society. I don't claim capitalism.
Yeah. It was like when
there's a certain group of thought that is equally critical of capitalism and socialism. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I'm also going to note that the man whose picture you have in your profile picture
is not a Calvinist.
He is quite anti-Calvinist. He wrote many naughty words against Calvinism.
He also didn't have anything nice to say about Jews.
Yeah.
Yep.
So change your profile picture if you're going to keep smoking weed.
Yeah. Ben Mordecai. Austin Metcalf. Sorry, guys. I honestly,
it's
hard to keep up, dude.
Yeah, they murder so much.
It's so hard to keep up with them. I mean, I couldn't tell you the names. I remember at one point I knew the name of the kid who was pulled out of his crib, like he was with his brother, and then I can't remember that kid's name. Like I used to know his name. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this cycle happens so often. I can't remember the Ukrainian woman that was stabbed in the and then all the passengers just walked away. Like, ooh, sorry, baby, I gotta get off at this stop. Okay. So all that to say, yes, his name is Austin Metcalf. We're still hoping for, that happened not far from where I live. I hope his killer gets justice. His killer, by the way, for those that don't know, received a ton of money and then blew it all and then went online and said, I'm broke. Pay for my lawyer fees.
Yeah. And he comes from a well-to-do family. And most of those donations that were given to him, a lot of them had Christ be with you. We're praying for you. Typical like black theology in these black churches. So
it's representative of a larger problem.
Yeah. Jaded Geek, friend of the show, says, would Doug be so callous towards, I'm at Charity Kirk? Is that?
No, I think he means Charlie Kirk.
He means Charlie? Okay, I wasn't sure if like Charity was the name of a daughter of his or something. I don't know. So yeah, I'll assume you mean Charlie Kirk. Well, and that's the thing is that, you know, I think we talked about this last week was I'm all for going marching to your death with the gospel on your lips. Like, I get that, but don't be the guy that says, well, if you just march to your death with the gospel on your lips, people would like you. No, they still wouldn't like you. They'd still kill you.
They do that. They kill all of them.
They don't kill you because they like you. This isn't elementary school where the girl that bullies you secretly likes you or something like that. Anyways, John Carter is spilling some tea here. Remember when we learned that Wilson's DM'd Webben that if you partnered with Isker, Moscow will be cut off from you, and then got a German pastor to threaten Joel that an alliance will be formed against you if he did not discipline or excommunicate one of his right-wing young men. Yeah, that's a perfect example.
So I don't think Wilson DM'd Isker. I think they talked face to face on that one. But yeah, that's you know, in fact, that tweet that you pulled up earlier from Wilson, I replied with the exact something along those lines. Like, hey, remember when you guys got leaked and it showed how you guys were all acting as a cabal against a little Baptist church in Texas?
Yep. Chris Hookins says, going through a defense of Virginia in the South by Dabney. Love the guy. That is the #1 book I recommend people read.
Nice.
By Dabney, not the #1 book overall. Sorry, I didn't finish that before you said nice. Because he talks about a war that meant a great deal to me, and he was a firsthand person in it, and it's not necessarily like Presbyterian in what it says. Like it's very much like he was a Christian who lived during a time that I care a great deal about, and so it's great book.
Sure.
It's also very organized, by the way. Like we could do a show where we just go through a defense of Virginia and kind of summarize. Here is his point. Like we're not going to be as detailed in the defense of each point because it's a whole book, but I mean, it demolishes many lines of thought. 99 cents on Kindle. I assume that is Defense of Virginia. The paperback version I bought was like somebody uploaded a PDF maybe, and it was the Barnes & Noble has their own in-house like publishing thing. So essentially I went into Barnes & Noble because I was bored and was like, hey, do you have this book? And they said, well, it's in the system. It's like a print to order book. And I'm like, yeah, let's just do that because I really wanted a copy. And somebody did that through the Barnes & Noble press.
Nice. $105 if you're trying to find one that's a hardcover. So,
yeah. Chris is saying it's all good that I slaughter his last name or am not perfect with it. Diggy says, every time you say potpourri, I hear potpourri. Yeah, I do the same thing. I still like the word, though. This stream, you what?
You what?
Is, humongous what? This stream has been fire. Thanks, gentlemen, and God bless. You're welcome.
God bless you.
Papa Alpaca. Look at these guys. Evening fellers.
Evening
Alpaca. Another one of the greats.
Yes, sir. That was right after the "What if it isn't envy" line
with this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That probably that episode. Man, Isker really walked into the lion's den on that one. Like they were looking to jump on him like piranhas.
Yeah.
Like they were. You could tell that was the point, and he was just kind of like, "But what if it's not envy?" Like
yeah,
that pissed him off.
He out Wilsoned Wilson in that one. He was so jovial. And every time I thought he was going to back down, like when they would press him on a question, every time I thought he was going to back down, he just leaned in. God bless him. I mean, he was really, he did good work.
Just an absolute champion. Love the guy.
Yeah.
John Carr says, my memory could be off, but I know Joel referenced text from Wilson during the call. Yeah, I think that's... let's see. Yep. John Carter says, I'm going to do some illegal activities. No, he says, I can send a zip file of all of Dabney's books on PDF if anyone's wanting to read. Great stuff. Well, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But I can also just go on Wikipedia for an hour and no.
Anyways. You'll know everything.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay, that is all the comments for now. We will catch up. After you were about to say something before.
Yeah, I don't know how long you guys want to take it, so I can kind of keep things brief here.
Oh, but we can keep going. We haven't had a 3-hour show yet, but we'll do that.
So one of the things, I wanted to kind of talk about the playbook a little bit, but I also wanted to talk about framing. And this is, again, for the young guys who are getting called in to go to these meetings. I think, I believe I had permission to say this, because like Ben Mordecai, I listened to his audio, and he is a master at this. I mean, he is really great at just kind of identifying the framework that these guys are setting and rejecting it and setting his own framework. And that is such an important part of all of this. If you go in there to these meetings and you're kind of playing defense, you're trying to, they're calling you a racist, you're trying to prove that you're not a racist, you're going to lose that battle. You can't operate within their framework and win. You have to reject the framing of being a racist or being an anti-Semite or any of these things and get back to the facts. And I think that is what a lot of these young guys struggle with is they get nervous, they're scared, they're not as well versed in this sometimes. And so they go in and they kind of accept the framework and they try to push back within the framework that their elders have set for them. And that's what you can't do that. You have to reject it. You have to establish your own frame that you're going to operate in. Because, we all know that, the term racism comes from a gay Jewish communist. We know that the idea of being an anti-Semite is pushed by gay Jewish communists. And so if you try to operate within that framework, you will not walk out of there having done well. You have to be able to identify that framework and reject it. That's an important part of all of this. And again, that could be difficult because you might feel contentious. You might feel like you are, you might, a lot of these guys, it seems like they kind of think like, well, if they give a little bit, they'll get some back. Like we could find some common ground. That's not where you want to find your common ground. And so that's important to kind of reject that and move on. But one of I think the last things that I wanted to mention is like these young guys who are going into this stuff, like you're not alone in all of this. This is happening across the nation. It's happening across the denominations. Like I was talking with an RPCNA guy, now been excommunicated. He's out. And these guys did some pretty horrific stuff to him. Like, they would have a meal after church. And because he was under church discipline, they wouldn't let him eat with the rest of the congregation, just with his own family. And so they made him sit in this room, which was like all glass windows, so everybody could see him eating by himself. And just crazy. While everybody else ate outside. And some of the things, like talking about that power grab that we talked about earlier, he was asking his wife to wear dresses, and at the time she didn't want to. Fortunately, things have really worked out well. This guy and his wife are doing really, really well. But at the time that all of this was going on, she went to the elders. The elders called other RPCNA elders up in Las Vegas. Edgar Ibarra, Colin Pearson, typical dorks.
I always get my theology of family and proper sex piety from people in Las Vegas. That's
right.
What you want to do.
Yeah, especially an RPCNA person in Las Vegas. Shoot me. And these guys, one of the arguments that they made was that this was potentially a Sixth Commandment violation for him to ask his wife to wear a dress, because she could possibly go walking up the stairs and trip on her dress and die. And so for him to ask that is equivalent to murder. And again, this kind of, he was in a sin when all of this kicked off. He was in like a legitimate sin, and nothing like sexual or anything like that, but something that needed to be addressed. And so his elders addressed him. He repented of the sin, has lived a life without that sin now for well over a year. And they still pressed forward to excommunicate him for sin that he had already been repentant of, and then set up a series of hoops for him to have to jump through in order to get reestablished in that church. This went on for over a year before he finally said, "Hey, this is not right. Like I'm leaving if you guys aren't going to stop this." He's a Midwestern guy, older than me. He's going through it. I've had 18-year-old kids reach out to me. I've had 45-year-old men who reach out to me with their case from 20 years ago. That's the exact same playbook from 20 years ago. These young guys are not alone in all of this. There's many of us who have been through this. I think probably more than just me on this chat who's been through this. And it's good to reach out and get counsel and talk to people who have been through it. Let them put this thing in perspective for you. Don't let it take the wind out of your sails. Like, faithful men have always been persecuted. Faithful men have always been persecuted by the church, by and large. You're not alone in this. There are men out there who can help you. There are men who can put perspective on all of this. And this is also another reason why it's so important to have a variety of touchstones in your life. You don't want to have just the church. The church is important, but you don't want to have just the church, because then you kind of become a slave to that. And when you do get excommunicated for being faithful, you've lost everything. You want to have a close-knit group of friends, close by and online if you can. You want to have a good relationship with your family, your parents, your spouse, your children, your siblings, because these guys will help you weather the storm that is brought about by your church. Nobody is going to be able to hold you captive if you have a robust life. You don't want to be out here preaching like a cream theology and living a skim milk life. Like, you need to have a robust life full of family and friends and loved ones and business and work and all of those things, so that if your church does this to you, you're not left completely in the void.
Yeah. I mean, living close to family and being able to work with family, if you're able to do it, do it. The stability of your everyday life really does make a huge difference in making you stronger as an individual. So seek that out in any way you can. Make real life friends, not just internet friends. It's good.
That's right.
To have internet friends.
That's right. Yeah.
But make in real life friends. I've got a very close friend who lives down the street from me. Our views align on all of these issues. And if I were to suddenly be thrown out of my church or something like that, I know of another good church I could go to.
Yeah.
I know that's not going to happen because my church is very solid. But you need to make sure that you have those lines of communication open in your life. If you don't know any in real life friends, reach out to Sean or me or Ethan or Ben. Reach out to us online, and we will put you in contact with people who are close to you. Yeah. Some will be closer than others, but it's good to have that stability. You need that stability in your life. You need it in your church too. Make friends in your church, but make friends in real life outside of your church. Make friends in business. But the other thing is, keep in mind, a friend stays close at all times, but a brother is born for adversity.
That's right.
When the chips
Especially
are
my
down,
brother.
When the chips are down, blood is thicker than water.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get excommunicated from your church, your dad who doesn't go to church is still your dad.
Yeah.
And you do not, in fact, have more in common with a black woman in Africa, a black Anglican woman in Africa, than you do with your next door neighbor.
That's right.
You have much more in common with your next door neighbor who goes to a different church than you, or who doesn't go to church at all. And you need to be pursuing those relationships and making yourself resilient and anti-fragile.
That's right. That's right. This is, I I was just kind of looking through my notes at some of the other things that I think could be helpful. One of the things that Brett Lynn pointed out, I think we're all friends with Brett Lynn. He's great. He was talking about how it's funny how we went from churches never disciplined. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this when we were kids, but it was like one of the common things was like, yeah, churches just don't discipline anymore. They don't believe in it. This was a huge fight with MacArthur. MacArthur brought church discipline back into Grace Community Church. And it was a huge fight. He lost elders. People left in droves, but he believed it. We went from having no church discipline, skipping right over to only disciplining right-wing people. Yeah. Every church discipline case that I know of, with very few exceptions, there's only a few, have been brought against right-wing people for nonsense. And when you go through this, again, these are a little bit scattered thoughts, but this is something that ties back into the entire conversation. If you ever want to see the results of the long march through the institutes, you'll see it when you're in this elders meeting. Like, I was in an elders meeting with men who were in their 60s and 70s who were talking to me about tone and being a tone. They don't want to be tone police, but they have to be tone police. And I just thought, I remember like 5 years ago when we all mocked left-leaning, blue-haired lesbians for talking that way. And now you have 60 and 70-year-old conservative reform people talking this way. The Long March through the Institutes has been successful in many ways, and we see that in these church discipline meetings. And I would say one more thing that, like, these guys are going to make you feel like you are incredibly unreasonable. They're going to make you seem like you're a radical. And I would just keep these things in mind. One, that you stand in a long line of godly men. 2,000 years of church history, 6,000 years of church history, that all believe the same things that you believe. The radicals are the ones who stepped out of that line, which is largely the boomer generation and Gen X. And it's reasonable. You are being reasonable for saying, hey, I want to go back to where we took this step off of the path. And I want to go back to that point and correct this. That is actually a reasonable thing. They want you to be reasonable within the frame that they set for you. It's like, I remember one church situation where there was an elder candidate who went and it was his turn to preach, and he preached against critical race theory. And he was immediately driven from the church and dropped as an elder because they felt like that wasn't reasonable to do that. And I looked at that and said, he's the only one there being reasonable. He's going back to the point where we departed. And he said, we have to fix this back here. They want you to fix it within this frame that we're currently living in. The wise thing is to go back to the sources, go back to the font, and correct these things back there. That is the only reasonable way. They are going to gaslight you into feeling unreasonable. And again, one of the things that came up so many times in mine, both, after I left and I got a text message from somebody from my church, they want to put it on you like, and I actually heard this in several audios too. Don't you know that this is making your wife sad? Don't you know that your children they were baptized here? Like, don't you know there's this kind of like gaslighting into making you believe that they care about your family more than you do. They are going to make you feel like you are an unreasonable person. You cannot give in to that gaslighting. This is faggoty, Presbyterian, Reformed, Lutheran nonsense. This kind of logic would not fly in any other time period.
And don't pay any attention to the people telling you, you've got to stay on the path. Don't go off the ditch one side. Don't go off the ditch on the other side.
Yeah.
No. Correcting is sometimes going to take extreme measures.
Yeah.
Right? I drive a truck for a living. If you get off of the road and you're off the asphalt, to get back onto that asphalt, you've got to hit it pretty hard.
Yeah.
If you try to get up slowly, all you're going to do is rip a hole in the sidewall.
That's right.
You're going to blow a tire. Overcorrecting sometimes is the only way to correct.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the people who say, oh, you're just going to hit the ditch on the other side. There is no ditch on the other side.
Yeah. You can't go too far to the right.
Yeah. You can't be too correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Too far right doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? You need to correct hard and immediately and get back on the road. And the people who are warning you against doing so, all they're trying to do is get you to rip your tire open and end up stranded on the side of the road. You can't let that happen to you. Don't listen to the people who are telling you slow down, conserve, be a liberal going the speed limit. No, you need to be radical. You need to be different, and you need to be fixing and correcting the things that have gone wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. No, my heart goes out to these guys, and especially the young guy. I know it's happening across the board, but typically when you get up to our age, we've got a few more things in play. My heart goes out to these young guys who are going through this. Many of these guys who reach out to me are in their teens or early 20s, and they're going through it. And, if there's anything that we can do, reach out to us. Like all three of us are happy to help, able to help, capable of helping. Reach out. That would be what I'd say to the young folks going through this.
My DMs are open.
Always.
It's funny. You always hear, maybe not always, but commonly hear, how do we reach the young men, or how come everybody in our church is either dead or dying?
About to be
what happened? And then God's waiting room, and but then it's like you're kicking out all those young guys. I mean, it was a similar situation to LCMS. In some ways it was the exact situation, but you had this thing where it was like, oh man, the LCMS is getting old. Like the average age had gone way up, right? Oh, no one's having kids, or we can't even get children, birthing age people in the church, or like it was this whole thing. But then you're kicking out all the people who are either that demographic that you're trying to reach, or the people who otherwise would be helping you bring that demographic into the church. And that's the part that they're not getting. And that's something that Woe and Mailer have talked about a lot, is like I say we, like quoting them. They are saying that they have brought more young men into the LCMS than Matt Harrison has, and that's true.
100%.
And I know that gets his goat, but it is 100% true that those guys are responsible for making many people Lutheran, and the LCMS machine hates those guys.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
I mean, they mentioned on one of the, I used to be every day that like a new podcast would come out for Stone Choir. Like I was a day one listener. I was like every single episode. I haven't listened in a very long time, but one of the early episodes, they were talking about how Jordan Cooper will, like, he's bragged before that he has convinced people to not be Lutheran, but he is a Lutheran pastor. And he was just like, well, I'm just being academic or whatever, and that argument just drove him away or whatever. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just it's
certainly not something to be proud of.
Shouldn't be something to be proud of.
It's a huge,
especially in a Lutheran context where Lutherans believe, have a very high view of the sacraments. They won't commune in other, like a Presbyterian church. Most of them that I know, they hold their views in their church very seriously. And so if you're saying I'm driving people away from that church, that's not conducive with the beliefs, your beliefs as a Lutheran. And and while I was going, to talk about Corey and Woe a little bit, while I was going through all of this with my elders, I began to look throughout my entire valley. Now I live in a very, very heavily populated area now. I mean, we're talking, I think it's somewhere up around 600 or 700,000 in my valley. So lots and lots of churches. And I began to kind of work my way through looking at all the different churches. And it became very clear very quickly that we are in a wasteland of churches. Every Presbyterian church was gayer than the last. The Anglican churches were openly gay. There were 3 Baptist churches. One that one of my friends, since I was in first grade, I met him. He was in kindergarten. He's a pastor of the church, and I could have gone there. There was another one that held some. They're not right wing, but they're very, very far on the conservative spectrum. So I would have probably gotten okay there. A third one that's pretty right wing. I could have gotten along there. But this is out of 100 churches or more. I'm not a big stone choir guy. Like, I have nothing against them. I just have not. I listened to, I think, like the first 30 of their podcasts and really enjoyed them. Like, I think they do excellent work. But I'm not like a stone choir guy. Right. But in the middle of all of this, I reached out to Woe and said, hey, I'm running out of options here. My last option was Lutheran. And not that I have anything against Lutherans. It was just the furthest, it's like they're not Calvinists. I'm a Calvinist. They have these views of baptism. And so it was like that was the least viable option for me. And so I started to look at the Lutheran churches and I was like, I don't know, man, I can't make heads or tails of this. So I wrote Whoa because you had deactivated your Facebook. I would have written you. So I
wouldn't have known any Lutheran.
Sure.
Anywhere near.
So I wrote Whoa and I was like, hey, is there a quick way to sort through and find out which Lutheran churches are gay? And he goes, honestly, it's easier if you just send me your zip code and I'll tell you what's going on in your area. I was like, cool. So I sent him my zip code. And he wrote and said, I know a guy really well. I trust him. He just planted a Lutheran church out there, and you would do well to reach out to him. So he put us in contact, and that's where I've been for the last, I don't know, couple months, and have thoroughly enjoyed it. Good, godly men, wonderful women. It's been very interesting being a part of a Lutheran church and seeing how things are done. And so now I'm not a member of the Lutheran. I have a long way to go because I still, I'm 3/4 of the way through the Book of Concord. I'm lots of meetings and questions and things to work through. But in the meantime, I'm at this Lutheran church and having a wonderful time with godly right-wing men. And so, again, while elders are causing me nothing but grief, while elders are breaking rules and making stupid accusations, Woe was there. He was there. He picked it up. He got me and my family squared away. That was very kind and gracious of him. I owe him a tremendous debt of gratitude for stepping in and doing that for me. And so people can, harangue him or say what they want about him. All I know is he's been very, very good to me and my family. And he's put out content that has been extremely helpful for me. Even the language we're using tonight about playbooks and framing, that's straight stone choir talk. So nothing but love for those guys.
Yeah, they've, I was having a conversation with a guy and I realized towards the end of the conversation, this is a guy at my church, that he was like feeling me out. And cause I knew in my own head, I was feeling him out. And then he just busts out his Stone Choir challenge coin. I was like, what? What's going on? And it's just like a secret, our guy hanging out, and you had no idea. I would have never known. But it's really cool finding those kind of guys. But at the same time, it's just bizarre that it seems like it's so much of us. I say us, it's a big tent, but the people who make themselves our enemies, they have put us in that tent. And so we understand you're one of us non-desirables, but it seems like there's so many of us that at some point when all the churches that we're all in either go gay or they just get really old and turn into the Florida of churches where everyone's just waiting to die. Speaking of the church, you had mentioned the church you were baptized in, I was baptized at Calvary Baptist Church in Modesto, California. That church, unfortunately, the most exciting thing that they have going on right now is the grief meeting where it's
counseling.
like, yeah, can we all talk about how, you know, like, oh, your husband died, my husband died, like it's like that kind of thing. And at one time it's a 2-story sanctuary is what I'm trying to say. And
the upper story doesn't get a lot of use.
Oh, at one time it was packed, dude. I used to stand up there. I used to sit up in there, and we would look down, and like a lot of the older people are downstairs. And I said it looked like a cotton field because like they had like the grandma fro kind of thing where it was like a perm type situation. But it was packed, dude. But now, like, you know, I have a buddy who'll check in on them every once in a while. And I mean, what do you do? I mean, the reason you're not reaching these younger guys is that younger guys know what time it is and you don't. They're not going to subject themselves for an hour a week to whatever goofy struggle session you want to put them through instead of, you know, preaching the gospel.
Saying be warmed and filled.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I do think like the age of the right-wing guys is coming. Like I looked throughout my entire valley and I thought, if I go to any of these churches in 6 months, I'll be out again. I'm not going to do that to my family. And so fortunately for me, I found this church, and it's one county over. It just got started, but it's wonderful. I think in a few years, this is not going to be that big of a problem. There will be churches filled with our guys who are godly and in line with all of our fathers, except for these last two generations. So I do think that the age of the right-wing church is coming because people are getting back. They're going back and reading these old guys. They're going back to the way that our fathers believed. And so I do think it's coming. I'm hoping that in a couple of years, this will not be as big of a problem as it is now.
Well, you were saying like the age is coming. I mean, it's all but here. I mean, you can look at it. If you've ever seen the graph where it shows men getting more and more right wing, but that same graph is women getting more and more left wing, like that's what's happening with the upcoming generation.
Yes.
And I mean, I am of the school of thought that the women are eventually just going to follow the men, and they will also become conservative.
I believe that too.
I have a friend who refers to that process as read by injection. But I mean, that's a more not nice way to say it, but I mean, when it process what it is. I mean, it's the guys making the woman act right. Right wing and properly.
Well, if you think about it, it's a matter of headship.
Yeah.
Men were made to lead, women were made to follow. And the men are going right and the women are rebelling against it. But the ones that don't, the ones who do marry up and move in and start following, they're going to go right as well. Yeah. That's just the way we are hardwired as a species.
Yeah.
It's been pretty cool seeing younger guys going, like breaking the trend. And getting married young.
Yeah.
Like that's been pretty cool to see because I remember when they announced that the big millennial trend, the big bucking of the trend with millennials was that we don't get divorced as much.
Yeah.
Like that, it was like a big thing that they were saying because compared to like boomers, I mean, it's really just a matter of how many divorces do they have, not if they
that's right.
divorce. And so, I mean, that's been cool to see. But then, you know, seeing like Gen Z guys and younger, it's like, I want to get married and have kids. Like that was not how people talked in, you know, like in Fast Times at Ridgemont High or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they weren't, I can't wait to get married and have kids.
Yep.
So we have broken the 3-hour mark. So,
all right.
Congratulations. Let's pop champagne.
All right. Well, with that, let's get into comments. Ben Mordecai says, thanks, brother. Talking about when you first mentioned him. Yeah, Ben Ben is a good guy. And when you first meet him, the first thing you're going to notice is that he's got a lot of sharp edges. And then the more time you spend with him, the more you'll realize that the reason he's got sharp edges is because he's honed like a knife. The guy is just sharp. And when it comes to discussions about frame and, how to know what is being argued, the guy's just unparalleled. So I've got oodles and oodles of respect for that guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even so much of this, he helped me by when I got to listen to how he handled things. He helped me so much to kind of put this stuff together for this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's saying, you're welcome to speak about my meeting, which we did. So glad to have that.
I had saw that comment,
which we already took.
If the comment would have said the other way, I would have said like, "Hold up, guys! Like,
hold up!"
I was watching.
Hold up! Wait a minute. This kind of blew my mind. Ben Mordecai, Edgar Ibarra, and Colin Pearson were the instigators of my struggle session as well.
That does not blow my mind.
Ben is in Georgia, and these guys are reaching across the country. Yeah, not to dox you, brother, but I think most people know.
Yep.
Yeah, they're reaching across the country to go and ruin this guy's life. This is very common. Very common.
It is. I just talked to another young man who it's Colin Pearson in particular on this one, who is in another state, not in Las Vegas with Colin. And this guy's calling his pastor all the time and trying to get him excommunicated from the RPCNA for being friends with Michael Spangler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good.
Just so absolutely wild. And this was my reaction as well. Papa Alcapaca says, "What? What? Yeah. Shocking. Personal, financial, social anti-fragility. That's right. Pursue anti-fragility." Yep. Dickie S. Non-desirables. I remember that. Yeah.
I resemble that.
I resemble that. Yeah. Yeah. Respect your elders. I'm not a cotton patch. It's a field of hoarfrost. You're getting there, old man. You're getting there. Yep. 3 hours. It's a record. It's a record.
Broken a lot of records.
Thank you. Thank you. Teary eyes. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we love him. He says, yep, in Georgia. That's right. Good old Georgia boy. All righty. Well, any final thoughts, Ethan, before we send it off? Folks, if you are not following Ethan on Twitter, he is the Jolly Brawler. Give him a follow. Like his stuff and share it wide. Ben is also on Twitter, I believe. So give him a follow as well. I'm there.
It's
give me a follow.
Mordstack.
Yeah, Mordstack.
Yeah.
Ethan's Twitter handle is in the description. Reach out to him if you're a friend. I'm sure he'll friend you on Facebook as well. But Ethan, any final words, final blessings for folks?
Yeah, just to reiterate, if you guys are going through this, or it looks like you're going to get called into your elders, you don't quite know how to handle it, reach out. We can help you. We'll help you reject the frame. We'll help you prepare for the playbook. And just know that you might feel alone in all of this, but you're not. There's so many people who are going through this. It's the times that we live in, and we'll see it through. Christ is faithful to us. He's faithful to all of us, and he will see us through this. I think about the scripture often of, I was young and now I'm old and I've never seen God's people begging bread. And it's the same thing here. Like the relief is coming. There are people here who can help. Do not isolate. Don't apostatize. Don't leave the church just because your pastor's a faggot. Reach out to us. We can help you. Stay in the word. Stay praying. Stay with Christ. There is no other way forward. You have to get through it.
Yeah. And the God who came down to earth and bled and died for your sins is not going to forget you.
That's right.
All right. Your names are written on his hands, and he remembers you. When all the world forgets and spits on you, just remember that they spat on Christ first.
That's right.
You're not in this alone. If you're running into, if you're running into the mountains and you're crying, woe is me, remember that God has reserved 7,000 who have not bowed the knee before Baal.
Amen.
And, that may seem like a small number, but together we're strong. Reach out.
Yeah.
We'll be more than happy to help.
That's right.
All right. All righty. Well, folks, it has been a 3-hour show, 3 hours and 5 minutes, according to the clock. And that's a record. That's a record, but it was good stuff. And Ethan, I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing the work and, slogging through these, finding the points of commonality. This has been really helpful to me, and I'm sure helpful to many of the people who are listening. I really, really appreciate that you took the time out of your day, quite a bit of time, and came and did this with us. And, I do pray that this goes out to many people, that they find it helpful. And what I want you guys to remember, all right, do not be discouraged.
Yeah.
All right. I know things look dark, and this has been a bit of a dark and depressing episode that a lot of people are going through, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
That's right.
All right. And the light is not a train that's just coming to hit you. All right. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is Jesus Christ. Run to him. Yeah. Run to him. Read your Bible. Be in the Word. Go to church. Go to church. Commune with the saints. Make those connections with the people in the pews next to you, and be resilient. Be undefeated, because in Christ we are not defeated. We cannot be defeated. If God is for us, nothing can stand against us.
Amen.
Well, with that said, thank you folks for coming along. Thank you, Ethan, again for showing up. We appreciate it. And we wish all of y'all a very good night. Go to bed, because tomorrow's the day that God has prepared for us to worship him in. I hope to see you at the table, and farewell.